All right, this is the July video chat. Not many announcements. Still working on videos. I don't know which one's coming next. It's probably very likely Freeman's Mind, but it could also be this, not the huge side video, but the smaller side video I was playing. The one that would be sort of like, it's not about Star Trek, but it's sort of like that Star Trek Apocalypse video I did, where I saw something that just sparked a lot of thoughts. And it's kind of a filler thing. I have more of the just kind of random interviews with people lined up. The next person, it might be almost like one of these chats where he had a lot of questions for me, but we'll see how the scheduling goes. People can cancel, or the person who I thought was going to be next had to postpone until August. Going to be talking, there's a preview of that one. We're probably going to be talking about wargaming, the real war games by the military. So that should be kind of interesting. Have some miscellaneous game ones, or there's. I'll get to it, but I'm trying to aim for about 2 a month for the interviews, but they could get canceled, or maybe I get ambitious and do more than that. I'll see. I'm trying not to have it steal too much time away from the main videos, though. So stuff like Game Dungeon, Freeman's Mind, and the other stuff is still a priority. And I've just started, I'm already sweating, so we'll see how I look by the end of this. If you want to do a time lapse later. What? So yeah, more videos and more interviews coming in the middle of that. I'm trying to think. I was gonna ask a technical question, but I think I solved it. Yeah, I guess. Well, I might mention this in a follow-up. I actually ran into a lot of issues when I did Kyrandia 2, and I wasn't expecting that. Like, usually DOSBox is pretty solid, and it ended up being a combination of like 3 different things. So I did a lot of testing, and for a while I thought it was going to be like the actual CPU architecture I was using, but it wasn't. But yeah, I'll save that for the follow-up. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Go ahead and start answering the questions. I'm probably forgetting another announcement, but I feel like it's not super important if I am. Let's see. Okay, so first one is, what is your experience with European cities? Do you like less car-dependent city planning, narrow streets, and old Western architecture? Yeah, generally. I mean, look, it's just a huge economic, in some ways, time advantage just not having a car and not being basically a second-class citizen the way you are in, I'd say, most parts of the U.S. Maybe a few cities you can get away with not having a car, but yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on your commute too, because for some areas, even if you technically don't need a car, it would that would cut off like 2/3 of your time or something. But I hate commuting anyway, so yeah, the occasionally having things like cobblestone streets and preserving and having like restored, like really old, hundreds of centuries old architecture is pretty great. I kind of like the look of it. Being in Poland, I can't say I really like the communist era architecture. It's pretty ugly. I mean, it just doesn't do much of anything for me aesthetically. I mean, if you were going for like pure aesthetics, I would just want to go like all out with go anywhere from like Renaissance era architecture to straight up fantasy level at something like a Warhammer or something like that, where it's just overly elaborate. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the best thing U.S. cities have going for it from a sort of aesthetic standpoint are ones that kind of go for a much more modern look. So I'm mostly thinking of like New York City, because there's parts of New York City that are with all the skyscrapers that can be pretty surreal. I mean, that's other cities too. I mean, like Chicago or let's see. Well, I draw a bit of a blank, but that's definitely a different kind of aesthetic look from what's seen in Europe. And I lost the chat. 1 second. Because I have no idea what people are saying, but that's generally not a problem. But yeah, I generally like it. And it's kind of exotic for me too, having lived in the U.S. for vast majority of my life. So, I would only see things like cobblestone roads and like, centuries old architecture just from things like movies or games, that sort of thing, or photos. So actually seeing it in person is nice. But yeah, I guess I don't have a lot of insight after that. Okay, much more insight. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, when it gets hot here, it's my thinking breaks down. Though there is airflow into the room, so I won't be starved for oxygen this time. Let's see. How did it feel when you initially spoke to Paul Morgan Stetler? That's the lead actor from Phantasmagoria 2, who by dumb luck I'm in contact with now. How did that even come to be? Well, he emailed me. I think my review of Phantasmagoria 2 made its way back to him, and he was looking to kind of branch out with people who had contacted him over the years. Anyway, and I seemed like a decent candidate for him. Yeah, speaking of which, I guess last time, recently, he emailed me again because he's started doing live stream sessions now of various point-and-click adventure games. So he reached out to me to appear on one. And normally I'm trying not to do too much sort of streaming playthrough stuff just because of time, but I wasn't going to say no to him. So he let me pick the game. So I picked one I hadn't played before, which was King's Quest, the original. Though I played the fan-made VGA remake of the original because I don't miss EGA graphics, nor do I miss typing in commands for what you're supposed to do. It was kind of it was kind of fun. It was kind of funny. There was somebody else there who was kind of a general assistant, and he hates Sierra games apparently. So I didn't realize that when I picked it, but Paul and I had fun with it. So, we ended up beating King's Quest in 2 sessions, so there was time left. So we started on another one of my picks, which was the Space Quest 2 remake. And Space Quest 2, maybe Space Quest in general, I'm noticing I might have had some rose-colored glasses with some of the dialogue on it, but he'll probably reach out to me at who knows when again to do more of that. So I'll have an announcement on Twitter and the website and YouTube, stuff like that. But yeah, it was just kind of dumb luck. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Phantasmagoria 2, so like I would not have envisioned like in the future I would be live playing something like King's Quest with a Sierra Star in the future, but sure. Okay, let's see. More questions. Oh, yeah, they're saying also taking bets that he'll be in your movie. Blink for yes. Well, that is a thought that crossed my mind. I don't have a role set out for him though. If he was really interested in that, I'm sure I could figure out someplace for him somewhere. Like, there's one role where I was kind of thinking about. Oh, geez, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I think it was Gareth Clark, who I've used him in a few videos before. He was the voice of the guy in the tunnel in the Civil Protection Tunnel, and because it's not that he's not a great actor. It's more that for different characters, you're kind of looking for a different kind of voice. And I only have like a couple that I feel like his voice would fit. Other people, I'd kind of want more like kind of boisterous characters or a little more odd, that sort of thing. So but there's so I don't know. I'll see if he. I mean, I definitely don't want to impose on him, but I mean, if that's something he's interested in, I might have to like shuffle around casting some. But I'm sure I could. So yeah, currently not planned, but that could change. That's my stance on it. Yeah, I guess I don't really know his range for voices. I mean, for emotion, yeah. I mean, I saw all of that in Phantasmagoria too, but I'm not sure if, because if he could do different voices, then that would definitely make it easier with casting. But yeah, I'll figure it out. But by the time I'm actually casting, that so much of the work is already done. So yeah, I heard I heard from a machinima maker like years back that they said that like they realized that the way I did videos, like in their words, like 99% of the work is pre-production, which it's maybe not quite that high, but it's just probably in the 90s. Yeah. So, let's see. Hey Ross, if you were okay, I should put the chat questions over here. Let's see. Have you or anybody in the community figure out how to unlock the secrets to Baldy Atlantis using the map pictures? I saw a comment showing how to unlock the other secret levels. That was cool. No, I mean, that was just my guess. It looks like that might have just been a dead end on my part. Because sometimes games do stuff like that. They'll have like hidden pictures and images, and it was giving me that kind of feel that like, maybe there's something there, but it looks like there wasn't. Baldi's will be in the follow-up episode, next one. Let's see, next. Oh, shoot, this was one I saw, and I meant to look all of these up, and then I forgot. They're saying, what is your favorite kind of architecture? You know, Gothic, modern, Norman, whatever was going on in the 70s. I'd say probably not 70s architecture, at least what I've seen. I mean, I like kind of futuristic looking modern stuff. That's not very helpful, I guess. But, well actually, in the art episode, the art interview that I had last month, he sort of, the guy I was interviewing, Sean, talked about like one style I'm also a fan of, where it's like kind of futuristic looking, but also mixed with nature. So it's like they'll have vines with like this sort of shiny white or glass architecture and curves, or, you know, trees and grass built into it. I like that look. I like Gothic architecture for sure. I'm not, okay, I feel quite ignorant right now. What's Norman architecture? I'm gonna look it up real quick in an image search. Oh, Norman. Well, not my favorite. Yeah, that's sort of your classic medieval look is, or fancy. Well, some of them look all right. I like spires that can look neat. Yeah, I'm seeing a range here on Norman architecture, so 50-50 on that one. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like a lot of the looks of buildings from like the 1700s, like in Europe. Where you kind of have that kind of, geez, I don't even know what it's called. You can tell how much of an architecture expert I am. Like it's kind of, it's like you see some of the outside support beams kind of mixed with white or like elaborate roofing and that sort of thing. That can look pretty neat. But. So I was asking if I like the castles in Poland and Europe. Well, I've only seen a couple. And they, I mean, they were all right. I mean, I'm probably the more elaborate ones I'd like a lot. Like I think, yeah, I'm sure so many of the chat know this. Like there's one in Germany that's showcased in Gabriel Knight 2 that would be awesome to visit. I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure somebody does. Yeah, so it's like the more. Oh yeah. Well, actually, I like the. Oh geez, it was like during was it Louis XIV or that palace in France that like I like the look of that, the look of the where the aristocracy lived. It looked pretty elaborate. And that sounds right from the chat. So. What do you think about the street level architecture from the original Blade Runner? Yeah, that's neat. I like sort of cyberpunk architecture in general. Though I'd say the star of the show from Blade Runner is the big sweeping buildings that kind of look like they have like this real imperial look to them. Those are those Versailles. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. For the I mean, just I'm sorry, I wasn't well prepared for this question. It's my fault. I saw this one. I was thinking, oh yeah, I should look that up, and then I forgot to. I just looked at some of the other questions instead. But yeah, I mean, I like a range of architectures. I mean, a lot of modern day stuff it varies. Like it's almost like the more practical it's trying to be, the uglier it is with a lot of modern stuff. But I mean, who knows in the future? I'm almost thinking, depending on where you live, you might want a home that's like dome shaped, so you'd have a good chance against like extreme storms, and then maybe like almost a moat to deal with flooding or something like that. So as climate becomes more extreme, that could change a lot about what's desirable in architecture. Somebody's probably way ahead of me on this, but I should look that up, see if there's any like home designs of the future that are accounting for an area having something like hurricanes or mass floods or extreme heat. Yeah, because I think for future homes, one thing it's going to be needed is, I guess they're called like heat exchange systems, where they have like pipes running down underground where like the ambient temperature is something like 60 degrees or something like that, 50, 60. And then so and then you cycle that air so that in the summer it's cooler, and then in the winter it's warmer. So, but it's a lot. I mean, it's not like super warm for winter, but it helps, Okay, what can you tell us about the music that will be in the movie? Well, my plan is there might be a couple composers. I have a couple the sort of like leading candidates for it that I like their style, but I'm probably gonna, for some scenes that like I have like a pretty strong image in my mind, I'm probably gonna give like some example music for the tone I'm going for from various soundtracks, and then kind of let them have their own interpretation on it once they see what I'm going for. Yeah, some of the soundtracks I'm gonna be using as just sort of placeholders are Dungeon Siege, parts of actually, what was it, Soul Reaver 2 has some music in there for one scene I want. The game Enclave, that has some music that has kind of the tone I'm going for. I kind of want everything to be, I don't want to do the thing, some movies do this and it works for some movies, but I don't want any like really obvious modern instruments. So there won't be any synth or distortion guitar or anything like, because it's going to be in a medieval setting. I might take some liberties with, how it may not necessarily be like entirely authentic for, medieval times, but it'll have like a symphony orchestra at most for modern aspect. I kind of want to like kind of meet the time period, meet the fictional time period, Let's see. Yeah, and somebody's making an example to George Lucas, or John Williams. Yeah, George Lucas using classical music for Star Wars, and then like John Williams take the reins from that. Yeah, it'll be similar to that. I think I did that for some previous Civil Protection episodes, actually. I'm pretty sure I did that for the tunnel, but I'm trying to think of some others. Yeah, I'm sure I did that for the tunnel. Like when they're going through like the initial, when they're first walking into it. I remember I had a stand-in track. I think the stand-in music I used when they first enter the tunnel was the menu theme from the game Fear. It's like, but so the kind of the compose, yeah. Geez, I forgot his last name. I want to say it's Kazik or something like that. Craig, somebody. He's awesome. Like for composing the music. However, he's pretty busy, so it has to. That's why I say it could end up being multiple composers. Where if I can only get one or two tracks, I might want him to do like this scene and that scene. That lets somebody else kind of handle others. But yeah, see, well, that's my plan for it. But and actually, there's one scene. I'll see if it works or not. Where I might actually want to use classical music, where I feel like it fits it perfectly, but I want it longer. So what I might get the composer to do is take the classical piece, basically imitate it up to a point, and then just from there keep running with it as though in the same sort of style. So it'd be like half authentic, half kind of reimagine. If the composer were to keep going, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's something pretty rare in classical music where I think they took the violins and started strumming them. Like, you don't hear that much in a lot of classical music, but it sounded great for the scene I was thinking of. I was thinking, yeah. And since it's classical, I can just use that as it is in the movie with no copyright issues. So, yeah, it's what? Oh yeah, we're talking about the synth stuff. I love synth music. It's just that in my brain it causes a little bit of like, it kind of wakes me up a little bit if I'm hearing that in a medieval setting. Like if it was in a contemporary or futuristic setting, I would have no problem with synth. But for my brain, it kind of wakes me up for a medieval setting, like because there was nothing resembling synthesized instruments then, and it may not be entirely authentic either. Like, I'm sure that like the composers, they probably won't be playing in like an actual like strings quartet or recording it for that. But as long as it mostly sounds like it, then close enough. I'm not going to be a stickler for like absolute authenticity for the instruments, just as long as it's like close enough. Yeah, so I was saying medieval Tron. Yeah, a couple movies did that. Like, well, I mean, their music's great, and it kind of worked for this one. Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack to Legend, and they have a lot of synth stuff. That one kind of worked for that one. One that didn't really work for me, but was it A Knight's Tale? I think it was the movie where they had like a lot of contemporary music mixed in with it, and it just took me out of it somewhat. I mean, it's not a movie that was trying to be that serious anyway, but I don't know. I'd rather have the mood be more complete there. So okay. If gnomes were confirmed to exist and were welcomed back into society, what jobs do you think they would favor? I thought about this. I really don't see it happening. Like, I mean, there's different interpretations of gnomes, but I mean, most of the ones I'm familiar with, they tend to be kind of pretty close to nature in some way or another. I mean, yeah, they can be natural tinkerers, but I think they would see humanity as, like in modern times, being kind of their mortal enemy, even though humanity might not see it that way because we would have destroyed so much of their world. And I think they would be kind of engaged anywhere from either just in hiding or like on a resistance front or doing guerrilla warfare against humanity, like hit and run tactics, that sort of thing. Like, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be doing outright open warfare, but they would try to, kind of have different targets that they would try to hit. Like, I just can't see gnomes entering like modern society with the way we have jobs now and their purpose and how we manage everything, and them being cool with that. I just really can't see gnomes being on board with that because it's not that they can't be industrious and do lots of work, but it's almost like they're well, okay, to go with Half-Life examples, it would be like working for the Combine. It would be just like people who are really on humanity's side working for the Combine, that sort of thing. So it would be, yeah, the Gnome eco-terrorist front. Yeah, that's where I'd see Gnomes. I mean, I feel like if Gnomes have become part of the system, then it would be like really dystopian. So, and then it could just kind of be any race. Because, the different fantasy races have their own sort of tendencies and tropes. So it just seems really uncharacteristic to me. So it would be kind of like, dwarves that aren't industrious and are cowardly. It's like, yeah, I guess you could have that, but that's really not what they're known for. Yeah. So yeah, I can't see Gnomes being on board with how we're running modern jobs. Let's see. I find that my interest in gaming is diminishing now in my late 20s, which saddens me because my early 20s and adolescence, gaming was a huge part of my life. I stopped playing the last handful of single-player games after a few hours, and I'm struggling to find the reasons for it. I know I like the games, but I can't seem to justify spending a couple hours of free time I have in a day to progress ever so slightly through a game. So you're saying maybe you'd like to talk about how your interest or passion for gaming has changed with age. Well, I guess first we should talk about his situation. Well, I guess the first thing to do is make sure it's games themselves that are the problem and not just your interest in things in general. Because if it's a lot of things you enjoy in general, and then you've lost interest in all of them, that could be a sign of depression creeping in. So then you can't really put that on games necessarily. They're just part of it. But let's say it's just games. So, you're into other things, you enjoy it, but games just aren't working for you. Well, I'd say it kind of, this gave me several thoughts. The first is like really great games, like, for your own, for at least for my taste, there can be great games a lot of people like that I don't really care for. Those can be kind of rare, actually. When I go through a lot of games, like I almost look at it kind of like a theme park ride at a amusement park or something. I'm not expecting every ride to blow my mind. I mean, there might be like one or two that really leave an impact, and the rest are just like, well, this is nice or this is amusing. However, it may not be that you're just not liking games. It's just that you may have had a string of ones that just aren't doing it for you. And I remember my first thought upon reading that comment was it from Mad Max Fury Road, where the villain, Immortan Joe, watches one of his minions try to take the Mad Max down, and he just fails spectacularly, and he just says mediocre. And I feel like that might be what you're experiencing. It's like you were hoping for something to really deliver, and instead it's just mediocre to you. And it feels weird saying this because we could be talking about a game that has tens of millions of dollars behind it, first-rate art and everything, but if the game just isn't clicking for you, it's not clicking. I mean, and so you shouldn't. Yeah, that's another thought I was gonna say is, don't assume that that just because everybody says this is a great game and the most amazing thing ever, that you're gonna like it and you think it's the most amazing game ever. You might not. I mean, and it might just seem like it's like, well, this is okay, it has a lot of production value, and then it's just not really delivering. So yeah, you might have to hunt more, unfortunately. Okay, so for how my tastes have shifted, they've shifted a little bit. I've gotten much pickier. Where I'm becoming much more aware of games that just feel like they're just not clicking for me, or worst case scenario, they feel like work. Like if the game feels like a chore, That's like the worst thing it can do to me. Like the only exception is if like most of the game is great and then like one level or there's one specific aspect is like a chore, then I might tough it out. But a lot of them, I'm gonna bail on now if they're just not clicking with me. And the things I'm kind of looking for are, one, I really like the gameplay. That's always a plus. That doesn't have to be it though. I guess the other thing is that if the gameplay isn't that great, one of the other ways that can get me to play it is if I'm really intrigued by something. So like with the writing or the environments they're showing me, in which case I've already kind of tapered my expectations that I'm not expecting a great game, but there's some aspect of it that just makes me curious and want to keep going. So that's something I can be after. Yeah, no, I found my taste for games hasn't diminished, but like the fantastic games, they're rare. They're rare. And some games, like a few specific genres, like they were more impressive when I first encountered them, but then they're not kind of wowing me as much now. Like for some reason, the Grand Theft Auto series is kind of like that with me, where when 3 came out, it was just like wow. But yeah, because the jump from 2 to 3 was enormous. I thought, yeah, wow, this is really impressive, and I was kind of fascinated by it. But as more and more of them came out, it's like, okay, well, I kind of get the flow of this now. It's like I kind of know what to expect from all these. And the thing is, it's not just knowing what to expect, because some other games, I know what to expect, but I still like it a lot, you know? So there's a whole lot I'm not consciously aware of as to why one game really interests me and why another game doesn't. Sometimes I can point to, objective things like a certain kind of gameplay or like the writing or something, but other times I don't even know. So, but if it has that sense of intrigue, that's what I'm after. And there's still just loads of games like that for me. That's why, I mean, it's not going to match up with anybody 100%, but that's why I have my games list on the website, accursefarms.com. Because I just keep seeing games that kind of intrigue me. So, and they're not all going to be winners, and I know that. So, another thing I do is, I don't know if this factors into it or not, I try to purposefully avoid like hype trains. I mean, I try to get like the absolute minimum of exposure to a game until I'm pretty sure I'm interested or I'm not. And then if I see one trailer and I think, okay, this looks awesome, I'm just gonna write down the title of the game, and then some point in the future when it's cheap, I'm gonna play it. So I'm kind of going in more blind to this and kind of trusting my judgment from just like a trailer or sometimes even some screenshots. Whereas if you're like inundated, that may not be the right word. If you're just overwhelmed with like a lot of hype to the game and all this insider stuff, well, then you're sort of spoiling it for yourself. And then maybe the promotional material is making the game seem better than it is. And so if you're really following a lot of it, then when the game's not, that's going to be setting yourself up for disappointment. Whereas if you're going in blind with much lower expectations, you might enjoy it more. Again, I don't know how much of that is factoring into it. Yeah, somebody's saying the new Bethesda game is the big hype train right now. Yeah, see, so far I'm not super hyped for that. I mean, I'm curious, but like a lot of the screenshots I've seen like have this kind of a lot of arid looking places with the worlds, and then they're tinting the screen, and then I'm expecting Bethesda presentation like from Elder Scrolls, which has never quite clicked with me. So to me, that strikes me as like a perfect example of like a game I maybe should like, but I don't know. I'm gonna be kind of pretty skeptical on that. However, I'm just like chomping at the bit to play like dozens of games on my games list. So let's see. Yeah, and for tastes for games, okay, some other things that have changed with age is I'm a lot pickier on platformers because, like, when I was a kid, platformers were like the closest thing you had to a lot of action games, and they could be pretty great. Now I still like platformers, but I kind of want that kind of well, it vary. It's there's no one thing because I was gonna say a lot of them that I like have really great environments, and I feel like I'm kind of getting into that world. But then other things can just have like really solid gameplay. That can be another thing. So I'm way pickier on platformers now than I used to be. I'm getting a lot pickier on adventure games. The point and click adventure games where I'm looking at, like, I'm thinking, am I intrigued by this world, or do these puzzles seem like these are like good puzzles I should, and if it's just not checking the boxes, I'm far more likely to go for a playthrough or to watch a playthrough than to just play through it and just hit a lot of dead ends. I'm not going to do that for any sessions with Paul Morgan Stetler. I'm because that kind of playing it with other people adds to the fun. So I absolutely want to go into games blind like that. There's no shortage of adventure games, so that's not going to be a problem. But yeah, basically a game has to prove itself. Yeah, I kind of consider any game now that I haven't played almost like it's on probation, where yeah, you better walk the line and deliver on something. With either you're wowing me with your world, or kind of getting my imagination going, or this gameplay is just addictive and I can't put it down, or or the storyline's really intriguing. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in a previous video chat, the game Remember Me, that one suckered me a little bit because the gameplay at no point like wowed me. I kind of liked the climbing parts, but that was about it. The rest of it, just the gameplay didn't do anything for me. The first third of that game, I love the environments. The environments are just awesome. And I actually want to eventually go through and either rip the map or get it working in VR just to kind of see it like I'm there. Because, yeah, that got my imagination going like crazy seeing those. But after that first third, like they started reusing a lot of environments and they were kind of less impressive. So I thought, okay, well maybe they're just kind of padding it out. And then the bottom third is almost like all indoor corridors with just like occasional accents. And I was just thinking, okay, this isn't that fun now. So if I had to do it over again, I would have played the first third and then just quit and watched the playthrough of the rest of it just to get the rest of the story and just get an overview of the environments. So I ended up playing it through to the end, but that was a mistake. They kind of suckered me in. So it was front loaded with the good stuff. Yeah, but that's what I mean. So that's a game I was going in not expecting great gameplay. The gameplay never really clicked with me on it. It's the sort of thing where like it's kind of complicating what Prince of Persia: Sands of Time already did, but adding a lot more different elements, and I didn't really find that fun. And for gameplay, I enjoyed Prince of Persia: Sands of Time a lot more. So that one flowed a lot better. For my taste. So, but that's just an example out of the blue. So, yeah. So pretty much, I play every game now like it's on probation, and it has to prove itself that it's worthy to keep going on it. And I never know which ones are going to be. It can vary a lot. If anything, the AAA titles might not have as good a ratio as a lot of like indie titles, like on my list, that sort of thing. So, speaking of the games list, I updated it like a week or two ago. So there's like 50 new entries or more on there. But yeah, so I am getting pickier, but I absolutely enjoy gaming. It's just, I got to make sure you get, I'm trying to really get to the good stuff more efficiently. So, and a game has to be really bad before I'm not even going to look at a playthrough of it. Although sometimes they're so obscure they have no playthroughs. That's when I get kind of conflicted. So. Yeah. And then one more thing, when I watch a playthrough, I'm applying the same kind of rules that I do to like movies and shows, where I only want to see the good stuff. And that's great when you have that little thumbnail preview option on YouTube where you can kind of see, okay, this guy's just wandering a corridor for 20 minutes. Okay, now there's a cutscene. Now all sorts of stuff is going on. Okay, I'll watch this part. And then it's like, okay, more corridor one. Okay, now another cutscene. So I'll just go. So I can actually go through. It depends. It wildly depends on the game, but I could probably go through some like 12-hour games in like 20 minutes, and then I'll know like what the gameplay is like. I'll know all the plot points. I'll know all the cool environments. So I'm getting better and better at this. I feel like this is like the only way I'm gonna get through my game backlog, assuming the games I have on there aren't all like home run winners. Because if I love the game, yeah, I'm in no rush to get through it. I'll take as long as I want if I'm enjoying the game. But, but again, they're on probation. Games are on probation now. So, okay, next question. Have you ever tried, these are some smoking questions. Have you ever tried a cigarette? What's your advice for people to quit if you have any at all? What's your opinion on smoking other substances? Okay, no, I have not smoked a cigarette before. However, I think you can't really go through life nowadays without getting secondhand smoke. So I've had many, many, many encounters of secondhand smoke. I honestly kind of hate the smell of cigarettes, just on every level. I mean, I don't I have nothing against people who smoke. It's just that I don't I'm like a bloodhound with my sense of smell. So it's like whenever I go, let's say I go to like a concert or something, or visit like a bar or something, people, and I know I'm gonna smell like cigarettes. Afterwards, when I come back, I treat it almost like a quarantine situation where I immediately just take off my clothes, put them in the dirty laundry, and then immediately go and shower and shampoo and everything, get it all off me. So because that just cigarette smells can just cling for just like nothing else. However, I will say I actually like the smell of tobacco, like pipe tobacco, because I've been around some people who have smoked that, and yeah, that actually smells kind of good. Like, I mean, I've never smoked it directly, but just the second, yeah. I mean, but like cigarettes, like I've never smelled any that I like. I hate the smell of it. So, yeah, Dungeon Blaze, they're talking about. I mean, and thankfully, I guess I didn't have the peer pressure to start smoking, because that doesn't do you any favors for your health. Actually, when I was watching one of those neurology videos, apparently nicotine acts like, apparently it doesn't do much to your chemistry, except it makes you want more nicotine. So, like, apparently, like, it's not like a huge, well, I mean, I could be getting this wrong, but apparently that's like its most notable characteristic, is that it makes you crave more. So, advice for people trying to quit. I mean, obviously different thing, but me quitting sugar took a lot of mental effort. So I would say you would probably want to try getting like one of those nicotine patches or Nicorette gum or something, so that you don't have to do it all in one swoop. I think the only way you could like do it relatively well, to do it like cold turkey, would be if you're going to be in a situation where you have no access to cigarettes for like a long period. So it's like you have no choice. Like if you're going to like out in the wilderness for long period, that sort of thing. Because then basically you're going to have the cravings either way. But if it's an out of sight, out of mind thing where you just know it's not an option, at least for me with sugar, that makes it a lot easier to deal with. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to hang out with if you have friends that smoke and you're trying to quit, just be upfront with them, saying you might have to bail on some things with them just because you're trying to quit. And like, you don't have the willpower for some stuff. I mean, they'll probably understand, and you can maybe just do other things with them where they don't have to like smoke up right in front of you, that sort of thing. Assuming all your friends aren't chain smokers, but I'm sure there's much better advice for that on the internet with it. What's your opinion on smoking other substances? I mean, I don't have much of an opinion on other substances. Don't bother me nearly. The smell of them don't bother me nearly as much as cigarettes. Like weed, I've smelled people smoking weed. That doesn't bother me the same level as cigarettes, or people vaping doesn't bother me. I mean, weed, it probably varies, but like I think vaping, it really isn't that healthy either. I think there's something, I think it's called like puffy lung or something. So you probably don't want to be doing these things, but you know, I understand addiction, you know, so yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against smokers, period. But again, if I'm well, I mean, one of my best friends from high school is a multiple friends from high school are now regular smokers. But I just know if I'm going to be hanging out around them, I try to sort of quarantine them from like my living quarters because that smell just takes so long to go away, if ever. So. Yeah, somebody's saying popcorn lung. That might be what I'm thinking of for vaping. So my understanding is it's not that much healthier than just regular healthier than cigarettes, but the smell I've caught from people vaping again doesn't bother me nearly as much as cigarettes. I don't know what they add to cigarettes, but I hate it. So again, smelling pipe tobacco does not bother me and actually smells kind of nice. So, not that you should start, but you know, you're coming out ahead if you know you're not addicted to at least one less thing. You know, I'm thinking in the movie Clerks. You know, they have a great line. You know, when this guy is doing this campaign against smoking. And he's saying, yeah, it's like, yeah, these are killing you. And the guy says, he's like, well, we all got to go sometime. And he says, yeah, but you need to pay somebody to do it. You know, like, well, he's got a point. So, but yeah, you should probably find somebody else talking about addiction. But I will say, not having to do it all in one step helps. So if you can fall back on something intermediate where you're still getting the nicotine, but you're actually off cigarettes. In my experience, it was a hell of a lot easier. Well, see, I went from like having sweets to low sugar to technically sugar-free kind of sweets, and then finally to kind of cold turkey. So and those jumps are a lot easier than going just cold turkey from the start. So. Okay. You've mentioned in the past that if a movie or show has scenes that involve a romantic or dramatic subplot between characters, you tend to skip it. Yeah, well, it depends. Well, especially shows. Movies, they usually put more effort into it, but it just depends on what's going on. Like, do you have any examples of movie shows that have stuck around for these scenes that you normally fast forward through? And could you share what it was that was done differently that kept you watching? Well, I mean, it's different for romance than it is for drama. Like, I was thinking for drama, like some that come to the top of my head, off the top of my head, or like again, The Shawshank Redemption. I love that movie all the way through. There's plenty of drama in that. Was it Requiem for a Dream? American History X. Those are all movies where you feel like the drama is pretty earned. Like these are all characters that are going through a hell of a lot. So you're kind of fixated with how they're getting through moment to moment, and it kind of lingers. Like by that, the drama scenes are kind of done well. So whereas. Yeah, when I say they've earned it, it's like by the time when you see the drama in there, it's either directed and put together really well so that you're engrossed in that part also, or else you feel like it's you have a better understanding of the character where this has a lot of significance. What's going on in this scene? Okay, yeah, from shows, the show The Shield, the sort of the finale episode of that, he ends up not to spoil too much, but he's being interrogated by, I think it was the FBI, and that's the weight on that scene. It's like so like the entire show is basically led up to this point, and there's a lot going on in that scene. So it's like, yeah, that's a very dramatic scene, but it's that's what I mean. It's really earned because you're like I can only imagine like the pressure on the actor for like doing that scene right, because it's like everything right. Well, not everything, but it's like the entire series has kind of built up to this, and now it's on the actor to really express that, gravitas on them. So, for romance, I realize there's kind of two things that, well, it can be kind of similar, that you have a development of the characters, but there's two ways like a romance scene can kind of like make me more interested. One is if the whole thing's kind of whimsical, so it's kind of having like a sort of a light comedy aspect to it anyway. Like I'm thinking of like Joe versus the Volcano, or Groundhog Day. There's plenty of comedy in Groundhog Day, so the romance scenes don't really detract much from that. It kind of fits into it well. And the other way, actually, I found is like if like the mood is like really good. So that has to do with stuff like the lighting, the music, especially. Like I can enjoy romance music for some things. Like one that comes to mind is actually the romance theme in Max Payne 2. Like that's just really nice music, and that kind of draws me into it. So I'm trying to think of some other good romance themes. Well, this one's sort of whimsical, but The Secret of Monkey Island has some romance music in there. It's with kind of a laid back bit of a reggae theme to it. Let's see, what are some other really good? Oh yeah, somebody's saying Twin Peaks. That is good, like romance music. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Well, I mentioned Amelie in a previous episode. Amelie has great soundtrack to it. I guess I don't know Across the Stars by John Williams. So. But yeah, if it has really good music and like they're really building the atmosphere, that can that can do a lot. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah. Have you given much attention to portable gaming hardware space such as the Steam Deck, Asus ROG Ally, or the Ayenio 2? I hadn't even heard of the last one. No, I haven't. I was paying some attention to mobile gaming back when I was doing a commute for one of my jobs, but since then I'd rather just play games on a computer. I mean, that doesn't mean if the game has like real effort put into it, that doesn't mean I'm against like playing mobile games on a regular computer, or like, because I'm sure there'd be plenty of there's plenty of games now that get like dual releases on like the Switch and on PC, and sometimes those are great games. So yeah, I mean, a lot of like 2D platformers can fit that well, but I just haven't been paying attention to it at all. My lifestyle is such that I can get enough gaming that I don't really need a lot of it on the go, so I just don't really worry about it. So yeah, talk to somebody else for mobile gaming, I guess. Let's see. Okay, we got yeah, I didn't know what to answer for this one. They're saying, what's your favorite Polish dish? I mean, I don't know. I guess barsh is all right. That's, kind of a soup made out of beets. Uh, I don't know. I don't have like really strong things that I favor, but a lot of Polish food is all right. It's. Will you ever make a video describing your process for making an episode of Game Dungeon, like from playing to writing to editing? I guess I could, but that's not really one of the things I have planned. I'd rather just make a new Game Dungeon episode. It's not that exotic and it's the sort of thing where, who knows, down the line I might start using different software and change my process a little bit. I actually did that quite recently, I sort of updated my version of Handbrake because I have to be careful because there's this one command that if I don't put it in, depending on the source I'm encoding from, like it'll screw up the color space. So it's like this long, elaborate command. So I try to get it like as close as possible from lossless RGB to whatever, YouTube uses. And just have as little loss as possible for that. But also, and if you do that wrong, it'll shift your whole color. And I did a lot of experimentation between like X264 and X265 encoding. And what I found was X265 encoding is better for lower bit rates, and I think it's better for stuff with a whole lot of motion. But for like higher bit rates, I'm not convinced it's always better than X264 encoding because like on paper it sounds like it is, but it can actually lose some details. It just depends. I don't know, but I mean it's a subtle difference too, though. So, but okay, so more questions. Have you played Chex Quest? No, I haven't, though I'm familiar with it. I looked at it. The aesthetics of it didn't quite grab me, but I know that has kind of a cult following to it. Yeah, I think that was one of like the few sort of Doom engine based games, if I'm remembering it correctly. Also, are you making a video about Creative Labs kneecapping Oriel and generally being an evil company? You had mentioned wanting to talk about X-Fi and Mage Knight Apocalypse video. No, I didn't have that planned, and actually, I think you're kind of misinterpreting what I wanted to talk about. Well, okay, I'll save it for the follow-up. It wasn't actually about X-Fi, but the big thing that made me just bail from Creative Labs just kind of permanently is, Daniel K. It was this guy who must have been brilliant coder who basically came up with alternate drivers that enabled Creative's older sound cards to work with Vista at the time and have all the features. Whereas Creative was intentionally crippling their drivers so that it would be buggy or not have all the features on Vista, but everything worked on XP. And the idea was that was their way of motivating you to buy the new generation so that the drivers would work on Vista at the time. And they basically threatened to sue him, and the vice president at the time came out and made a statement about it, essentially saying it's our right to, I mean, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but like it's our right to like withhold features from our drivers, which can include just basic bug fixes. So I'm thinking like, oh wow. I mean, I understand that this is what I said earlier, like in many businesses, it's their interests are like diametrically opposed to like the consumers, where the consumer wants to buy a product that works as well as it can and lasts as long as it can. But that's almost like a liability for a business to do that. Whereas if you can kind of herd people into buying the new model, even if it causes more waste, that makes more economic sense for a business. So it's, but I mean, so basically, well, hey, imagine if video cards did that. So that, yeah, Windows 11 came out not super long ago. So imagine if you wanted your video card to work properly on Windows 11, you had to buy the next generation of video cards. And they would sue people who would try to get your existing video card working properly on Windows 11. I mean, that was such an awful business model that, I mean, and then their drivers always did have problems, but that was just made me want to like never do anything with them again. And with Unreal, they bought out, I think it was like Turtle Beach or Unreal. That's where they had like really great 3D positional technology. They bought it out and then just sort of sat on it and didn't use it. And apparently, I guess I never really got to mess with Unreal stuff, but apparently it was like way ahead of its time for like 3D positioning, and would probably games. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know if games would benefit from that even now, or if it's the sort of thing where 3D sound processing caught up and it's kind of water under the bridge now. I don't know, because sometimes you do have technology that just never had a replacement for it, and like the old stuff still is the best for like certain technical aspects of it. It could be sound is like that. Yeah, in fact, I heard the reason Microsoft axed Direct Sound 3D for Vista and onward was because of Creative's drivers were so crap that Microsoft was tired of the blue screen reputation from them. So yeah, it's possible you can maybe thank Creative Labs that's the reason we got rid of Direct Sound 3D for Vista and onwards. So I mean, Creative Labs were absolute pioneers in the old days with what they did with hardware. Well, they've always had like really great hardware, but man, their drivers, it's become, maybe they've gotten better over time. I don't know. I am in certainly no mood to experiment with them because of their reputation, because they've basically made their drivers be a complete liability. And I had, for a while I tried an Asus card. I forget the name of it. I'd probably recognize it if I saw it again. And their drivers had issues too. I mean, however, I don't think they were doing it on purpose. I think they just had trouble getting their act together for it. So it's, yeah, don't underestimate stable drivers. Okay. Oh yeah, I was saying, what other games besides The Legend of Kyrandia 2 would you consider red herring kings? And they say they played Jack Orlando a few years ago, where about 80% of the objects you pick up don't do anything. Well, maybe that dethrones it. I haven't played Jack Orlando. I don't know. I mean, out of like my memory, which can be pretty spotty, when I'm thinking of just how many things just did nothing, I think Kyrandia 2, out of my memory, it's in the lead. But again, I haven't played Jack Orlando, because 80%, that would be even higher than Kyrandia 2. I mean, unless you count the Rainbow Room, but that's kind of like a cheap shot. So, yeah, maybe I need to look into that one sometime. Fantasy or sci-fi if you had to pick a genre? I guess, yeah, if I had to pick one, usually I go with science fiction. And then they're saying they found it funny how a lot of big game devs are saying it'll be a trend where each genre franchise going at the same time. Where they're saying like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, Warcraft and StarCraft, Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and Nintendo had Mario Galaxy with Legend of Zelda. Well, Nintendo also had had Metroid. Yeah, that's their big sci-fi one. I guess to a lesser extent Star Fox, but so yeah, I guess a lot. Well, I guess they found those are demographics where it pays off to have competing you know, sort of genres there. But yeah, if I had to pick one just going in blind, not knowing anything, I'd probably go for science fiction. Will you do a series on other games akin to Freeman's Mind? They're saying like Doom. Well, yeah, the chat mentioned I did do a Doom Guy's Mind as a one-off thing. It's for April Fool's joke, so you can watch that if you want. In general, no. I kind of want to just finish off Freeman's Mind and would rather do more stuff like Game Dungeon or eventually make my way back more to like maybe animated stuff like with Civil Protection, that sort of thing. So sorry if you're looking for more from that. I'd rather do other videos. Sorry. Okay, well, we have one question I've already answered. Oh, bonus question. Favorite cheese to put on toast? I like lots of different cheeses. I'm not too picky. Guess I like Munster or let's see. Well, here, I don't know. Well, here in Poland, they have, I don't even know what it's called, Adamski cheese. I like that. But I like lots of different cheeses. So it has to be pretty bad. It has to be pretty out there before I don't like it, I guess. What do you think about Gabriel Knight 3 having one of the worst puzzles in adventure games? The cat hair mustache puzzle, while also having one of the best, the Serpent Rouge puzzle. I don't know because I haven't played through Gabriel Knight 3. That's one where, like, I tried playing the beginning of it, but, like, the original one is pixel art, and I like that style. And 2 is full motion video, and I like that style, the way they did it. But 3 was like the early days of like 3D, and it just wasn't clicking with me. However, I really should, if I don't want to do the gameplay, I should at least watch a playthrough of it, because thematically, that one's probably going to be my favorite, because that one involves vampires. And yeah, so the first one's all about voodoo, the second one's about werewolves, the third one's about vampires. Well, vampires is going to be my winner, just going by theme. Like that so I have to check it out at some point. So, I have not played Time Commando, I don't think. This is another one I meant to look up, and then let me double check which game this is. No, I haven't played Time Commando. The aesthetics of it are not grabbing me. I'm seeing a lot of like the kind of grays and browns and arid looking spots. So yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I was thinking of a different game. I'm sure the chat will know what it is. I think even Lazy Game Reviews did a video on it. It's one I saw in the arcade where you're this time traveling cowboy, and its big gimmick was it cost a lot of quarters, but it was like an actual holographic game. Like it was in 3D. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was something, time something, but. Well, maybe I'm just looking at the wrong screenshots from Time Commando, because I don't know, the atmosphere can play a lot into whether I kind of look further into a game or not, so. I like the chat here suggesting Something the Hedgehog. Well, yeah, it's, yeah, well, why not, you know? What was your last vacation? Geez, this one, like, I had to think about this one. It kind of depends on what counts as a vacation. Like because there's multiple times I've gone to places, it's usually because like I have to go for something else. Like we've been to Warsaw before, but that was because I basically had to go to get my passport renewed. And there was a U.S. embassy there. And I'd say like the most recent one that was kind of like that was when my parents and some of my friends visited shortly before my wedding. So we went around to a few different places, like around where we live. I saw a few touristy locations, but that was more just kind of catching up with them again, rather than the locations. Uh, and I'm thinking like the last time that like it was completely my initiative that I wanted to do this, or like to actually go here for vacation. Like this is all on me. It might have been like the meetup I did with fans, geez, like a decade or more ago, something. No, more than a decade. Geez, might have been like 15 years ago or something like that. Maybe around there. We went to an amusement park for both of those, but each of those were like one day, and I don't know if like that counts as a vacation, if like a 1 day vacation, but yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I've barely done any. It's not that I'm against the idea. It's just that there's usually so many things I have to do. Plus that can get pricey too. So, I mean, I'd like to go to more things like that, but man, you need a certain kind of you need a certain level of free time and income to do vacations, and a lot of times that doesn't. It's not so available. I mean, I've talked about with my wife us going to kind of this sort of not super far away area in Poland where they had like this kind of, I'm not sure if there was like a dinosaur park or something there too, but they also had like this big aquarium area, and then there was mini golf around there. And then when I visited that region when I was with my parents, there was this kind of surreal forest for me. For it was surreal, where like the entire forest was covered in moss, like the bottom of the floor, and I had never seen anything like that outside of video games. And so I wanted to visit that again because like that was kind of pretty cool and surreal for me. I like, because I mean I've been in a lot of forests. I've never been in one like that where like the entire floor of it was moss. So it felt like something out of a video game. So and that was also in that general region where I like doing kind of mini golf stuff especially if it's more exotic. And amusement parks, I like doing that. So that would probably be what and I still have ambitions, may or may not happen, of like going towards the Alps where they have like those those alpine coasters where they have like this railing that you kind of control the speed or the brake, and you just go down the entire length of the mountain. Those look awesome. Those look like exactly the sort of thing I would want to do. Or things like zip lining, I would enjoy that sort of thing. So, yeah, I barely have. It made me stop and think. Yeah, I barely had any vacations, and yeah, if we go for one that lasted more than 1 day, that was on my own initiative, I'm not sure I've ever had one. So it was always like with somebody else, and there was their initiative, like usually my parents in the past when I was a kid, or it was something where I had to go here for some obligation, and we just did a couple things while we're at it. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I should go through some more questions then. Okay, somebody played Broken Age. They absolutely loved it. I have not played that one. I think that was one where like the aesthetics of it weren't really grabbing me, but this person loved it and it's becoming like their all-time favorite. So maybe I should give it another shot. But that's the one when I think of like two kids that are like sleeping happily under a tree. Am I thinking of the right game? Yeah, that's what we have on the cover. So it's like that doesn't grab me from and then like the screenshots of it's like, well, okay, like I want to see the guy trapped on some alien world, or something mind-bending sci-fi or something like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'll give it a shot. Okay. Oh, I didn't even see this one. I had a dream you were streaming on Twitch, listening and reviewing rock music from the 2000s, and there was a song from 2003 that made you gradually burst with laughter. What music gets you going whenever you hear it, humorous and otherwise? Oh, geez, I have to think about it. Well, I'm thinking of humorous songs I like rock. Oh, geez, who did that one? It was like Three Little Pigs. What? Oh, who rock. Let me get the artist. Green Jelly. Okay, yeah, that one's great. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, Three Little Pigs. Trying to think of some other rock ones. That was probably 90s, but still. Well, I like Bad Habit by Offspring. I think that one's funny. Or another one by Offspring. Was it? Jeez, I forgot the title now. It's like, I think it's Just Get a Job. Let's see. That one's funny. Yeah, Why Don't You Get a Job? That's another funny one. Offspring. Maybe the chat will suggest some more. Oh, jeez. There's more good, funny ones. That's the problem. I didn't see this one ahead of time, so I'm drawing blanks. Well, I kind of find the Peaches song humorous. I've heard there's like a double entendre to that one, but I don't know what it is, so I just take it at face value, that he's singing about peaches. Like, okay, somebody's saying Anything by Weird Al. Okay, somebody's saying Institution by Suicidal Tendencies. Yeah, Twisted Sister. By Suicidal Tendencies, the one I really like is Give Me Your Money by Suicidal Tendencies. That one, that's one, just the music in that one is just awesome. I mean, yeah. I'm sure some funny. Yeah, Detachable Penis. That's a funny one. Yeah, so for Twisted Sister. Well, I guess for Twisted Sister, are like the lyrics that funny, or or it's usually the videos that are funnier for Twisted Sister. Although there meant to be another one. What? Yeah, it's like I think it's Alice. Oh, geez, I'm drawing a blank out. I think it's Alice Cooper. It's like it was something like can't get a car because I don't have a job. Can't get a job because I don't have a car. Yeah, I like that one. Let's see. I remember some other like good funny ones. Oh man, I know there's like some more like that's in my tongue, but geez, okay. I'm just gonna stand here in silence then if I keep going on this while I'm trying to think of it. So, okay, more questions. Do you take breaks on the day you release major videos like Game Dungeon or Freeman's Mind, or you just shift focus on something else that day? Well, that's usually happening late in the day, so I often do take breaks. However, sometimes I'll just do stuff, what I would consider like lighter work, that's just stuff that's not very taxing, like more fun, like say clearing hard drive space, to make sure like I have space for like the next thing I'm doing, that sort of thing. That's pretty low level for me, that sort of thing. But yeah, I usually take it easier after releasing a major one. Let's see. Oh yeah, somebody emailed me about this. I put it on Twitter, but it's worth mentioning here too. Somebody here, I'll put the link in the chat. Let's see. That someone was digging through the executable for the crew and found it might just be dev notes, but anyway, there was some proof to suggest that there's an offline mode for the crew. So obviously, if it is just dev notes, then yeah, you can't really do anything with that. But if it's just a flag to turn on for God's sake, somebody's take a look at that if you can. Because, yeah, man, The Crew is like an example of a game where if I could mod that, I would probably enjoy it anywhere from like 3 to 5 times as much, maybe more. Like I would really sink some time in that if I could mod it, where I could get like the time of day, or you could kind of mess with some of the traffic, or people could like add in sites to see, that sort of thing. That's people. One of the questions that comes up on these chats frequently is game ideas. That would have something like sort of, what do they call it? Like alternate reality game, an open world alternate reality game hybrid, where you drive around in the open world, but then when you get to certain towns, a lot of the content could come from just people online connected, like actual websites. So you actually have to like drive to that location to see what's going on in that town. And the community could do a lot with that. Like, you go to this house, this is there, or like you go to this store, you find this information. You could find ways of, or maybe you could have like, maybe you could create like an NPC that relays like so people could like type out little stories or have images or that sort of thing. I don't know. I guess, yeah, something like that would be awesome. So it's giving you excuses to drive to all these different places. So yeah, somebody's saying a large scale driving MMORPG. Yeah, something like that. Because like with games like that, I like the experience of like taking in the environment, but I want something a little more too. So if I have like an excuse to be driving to all these different spots where there's going to be something happening once I get to that destination, I would love that, And then it could be an exploration thing too, where, if you go on all these back roads, you might find some weird stuff, at somebody's house off in the middle of nowhere, that sort of thing. So it would encourage like exploration, that sort of thing. But yeah, and in the meantime, yeah, I would love an offline version of The Crew. And they're saying, yeah, it could be the case that someone at Ubisoft just has to flip a switch and that you can play this game offline and it's preserved. Well, if that's the case, for God's sake, why not give a PR statement on that instead of making me deeply resentful that you're basically putting your game on death row from the get-go. Like if the devs came out and said, we have plans to implement an offline version later, or if we ever have to shut it down, we'll be sure to like make sure you can play the game offline, but we want to launch with it online because it's part of our vision and it helps against piracy or something. If they said that would be a complete 180 on my attitude towards it. Because then I'm thinking, okay, they want to really encourage the online stuff, even though I prefer having the offline option, as long as I know they're not going to destroy the damn game and this thing is safe, then that would make me feel so much better about it. Although, well, okay, Ubisoft is the publisher. I guess I would give more credit to the developer. But since Ubisoft has been confirmed to lie, that wouldn't make me feel that much better. Because, like, I really feel like we should remember when major companies just lie to our faces, and then later they make statements on other things. It's like, well, okay, but like, you know how much it will never happen, but you know how much I would like it is if media released statements from a company, it's like, well, no company that's known to have lied in the past, or from known liar Ubisoft, or from known liar Microsoft, and then they have like a link to where they lied, in the past, has stated that, so it's like it gives constant reference for like, saying, no, you lied to the public knowingly in a big way. So let's not forget that, because I'm thinking of Microsoft, like how they said Windows 10 was going to be the last version of Windows. And then like almost like clockwork, they came out with Windows 11 at the same time scale, you know. Yeah, somebody's saying ExxonMobil has entered the chat. Like, I mean, again, it won't happen because I think the media in general is just too, they can't take a stand like that anymore. But it's, yeah, it would be refreshing, you know. Let's see. Okay, lost my spot there. Okay. Ross, what are your opinion on games made to make people mad? Like Jump King, Only Up, Getting Over It? I didn't know Only Up was one like that. That's why I need to research. Yeah, the Only Up I had on my list as check. So that like, I haven't put that on the games list yet. That was one where I'm kind of intrigued by what I'm seeing, but I think I need to look at it a little more to see if this is my kind of game. So maybe it's not. Getting Over It, Only One Mistake and Hours of Progress Are Undone. Those are not my kind of games, but I can understand how some people might like them. Like I'm thinking it's like the same sort of mentality as like a hardcore mode for games where, you know, one death, that's it, you're out. I've actually done the hardcore mode on a couple games. Like I did it for Sin Episodes to see if I could like do it all in one life. I think I did. I can't remember. Maybe I should make that like a challenge stream or something like that. Yeah, I mean, if you really like the gameplay and like you're really good at it, this is like it increases the suspense for sure. But yeah, if it's just a general game from like by design, it's there to make you screw up, so you really have to play it like 50 times to get through it. No, that's not my kind of game at all. But if people like it, why not? I appreciate them being transparent about that. Like, you know, you show people dying over and over in the trailer and just mention like one chance, you know, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think I played one game where it was, I think it might have literally been called One Chance, and I got it. Like you have, well, no, it was more than one try, then you die and start over. This one, you couldn't start over. And the plot of it was there was this virus that was breaking out and like killing most of humanity, and you were trying to find a cure. And you had one chance to solve it on your playthrough, and I did it. I think I mentioned that in one of the game dungeons, actually. Yeah, one shot. Maybe that was it. Because I just treated this the way I would do it in real life if I was in that situation. And I guess I shouldn't spoil how I did it, but yeah, that's the only one that's literally the only game I think that you're only meant to have one shot at it, and I got it one shot. So okay, chat's saying it was One Chance. Yeah, it was like a Flash game or a web-based one. And somebody's saying it's not One Shot. That's the light bulb game. So I guess I haven't played One Shot. But yeah, not my kind of game. But you know, different people like different kinds of games. So you know that I am definitely a big fan of the long tail. See, it could be for some people, all these other games are just boring because the stakes aren't high enough. Whereas these games that just are meant to frustrate you if you don't get it right, well, then the stakes are high enough for them that it keeps their attention. I don't need that. What I want from game, well, I mean, it varies with the game, but in a lot of games, what I want is like a adventure experience or some gameplay that it's like crack. I finding it so addictive, and I don't always know what that's going to be necessarily. Or again, like I said, I want intrigue from my games. So like, I want something about the game to make me curious what's coming next in this world, that sort of thing. So, And that sort of thing just gets in the way of that, because if I have to go through the same segment like 10 times or more, well, now I'm getting numb to it, and it's reminding me overwhelmingly that this is a game. Whereas if I can just kind of keep progressing at like a steady pace, then I'm sort of caught up in the world and I'm not thinking so much about how it's a game. I'm just sort of in the experience. So, but yeah, different people want different things from games. So what are some of the most intense experiences you've had in your life, good or bad? Well, easily towards the top would be the time I almost died when I was a kid. Let's see, is it? I always forget which side the scar is on. I think it's on my right side. Let's see, is that? Yeah, there's the scar. I can't. I can't show it to the camera. Well, here I can show it on my arm. I also got that one from the. But yeah, I almost bled. Yeah, had my carotid artery cut from slamming into a door, glass raining down on me, and yeah, almost died from that one. So that was pretty intense. And honestly, I'm thinking the second, I think the runner up for most intense experience would be, from when I went to the amusement park, one of the rides we went on was one that it was just it was a drop tower. So it just lifts you straight up as high as it goes, and then you just free fall for a few seconds, like while you're strapped to the chair. Yeah, it kind of feels like you're falling to your death, and that left an impression. Like I'm glad I did it. If I had enough peer pressure, I would do it again, but it's not something I think I would actively seek out again. So, like, I'm not. I like some adrenaline, but I wouldn't call myself an adrenaline junkie. And if you're an adrenaline junkie, then yeah, you should absolutely try out a drop tower, because it'll feel like you're falling to your death, and that's an experience. So I think my level of adrenaline seeking is more like, my favorite are like the wooden roller coasters, where they're like real bumpy and go through lots of turns and stuff. That's about optimal level for me, but I can handle some more. But yeah, I mean, you'd think it would be something more profound, but I mean, having what feels like a near-death experience sure leaves an intense impact. I guess for good ones, I have to think. Well, those are both. Well, no, the first one was bad, obviously, but the drop tower was kind of both. Let's see. I'm trying to think of like what rates for highest intensity. For good ones, well, maybe it's not most intense, but it's up there. I'm not someone who has done a lot of flying, so flying on a plane is the few times I've done it. It's definitely. I think it's neat. It's pretty cool. I mean, there always is the thought that, like, yeah, I mean, if something goes wrong, I might die from this, but I'm kind of putting my faith into the plane flying, and I enjoy it. Seeing the plane take off and getting really up high. It's a bit of an otherworldly experience. Let's see. What are some of the like really intense good experience I've had? Well, I mean, relationships in general. What are some others? Well, I actually remember. Well, yeah, okay. That was another one where, yeah, so that was another sort of one-day vacation I did with a friend of mine, where for my birthday, we went on a road trip. This wasn't most intense, but it was up there. We went to a ski resort there for a while, and while we were there, my car key broke off in the car, and we were a ways out, and so it was, so we weren't sure if we were going to be able to start it again, but he ended up, I think, like we weren't able to like turn the key to it. But my friend, I think, had some model glue on him, and we managed to like glue it together enough to turn the car key. And then after that, we just like we didn't turn it off. Like I think, uh, yeah, I think like when we took a bit of a risk, like leaving the key in there. Like I think when we stopped to eat, like afterwards, because we couldn't take the car key out of there. But I remember that was kind of a close save. But I know I have more intense experiences. I'm just drawing a blank on it. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think of some more. I'd have to think of some more ones. But yeah, those are I'm pretty sure those stand out at the top. Like almost dying and feeling like I'm almost dying. Like I've heard if you want like the most ultimate one, like from an amusement park, it's like even more intense than a drop tower. Some places have these things where they suspend you over this gigantic net, and then they kind of like wheel you out there on this harness, so you're like facing up, like and then like they disconnect you, so you're literally free falling into the net. And apparently that they did some experiments where they like tracked people's like brain activity, and boy, that apparently that one just does it more than anything, more than like any thrill ride. So if you're like an absolute adrenaline junkie, you should look into something like that, where they're basically free falling you into some giant net. So you're very likely safe. It's just you're gonna feel like you're falling to your death. So okay, so go for some more questions then. Oh yeah, it took me a minute to. There were probably better answers, but this is the one I landed on. If you could own any sci-fi gadget, what would be at the top of your list? In the chat, feel free to suggest some. But the one I landed on was from my birthday video, the razor from Pandora, I think was the name of the movie, where the guy is like, has a beard on, and he just holds the razor to his face, and this light comes out, and like as he goes by it, he just gets an immediate smooth shave, like just from the light, just burns off the hair. So, oh okay, yeah, we already have a better answer. Star Trek replicator. Yeah, I mean I don't know if that's small enough to count as a gadget, but if so, yeah, you're right. That would be that would be towards the top. We have recommendations of cybernetic eyes. I mean, I don't think I'd really. That would just be kind of gimmicky for me. It's not like I'm doing like special forces infiltration or stuff like that where I really want it. Let's see, lightsaber or blaster. Well, I think blaster would do. Lightsaber could be. Lightsaber crossed my mind because that would be like the ultimate workshop tool, because you just cut through anything immediately. I mean, that's welding. Lightsaber would actually have a lot of practical use, especially if you do like a lot of like shop stuff. I realize for me personally, I don't do a whole lot of that. It's only like a few times it would come in handy, but for other people, that would be just like a dream tool, your lightsaber. Okay, the transformation gun from Elguna Shive. They're saying it's a webcomic. I'm not familiar with that or what it does. Okay, so I'm saying the pizza rehydrator from Back to the Future 2. And Mr. Fusion. Yeah, Mr. Fusion would be. Although Mr. Fusion would be. I don't know if that counts as a gadget so much as that's like a new technology that like changes transportation or just energy production in general. Yeah, I don't know if that's like small enough to count as a gadget, but yeah, Mr. Fusion would be way up there. The pizza rehydrator would be nice, however, if we're competing against replicators, it can't compete against that. Replicator is just gonna win against that hands down. But that would be nice. Avatar technology, being able to transfer your consciousness into another body. Yeah, that sounds like too elaborate for just a gadget. That sounds like paradigm-changing technology, not just something in your hand that you... Because when I think of like a gadget, I'm thinking of like something you can kind of carry around with you, you know? So, yeah, the chat's having better suggestions here. Yeah, holodeck. Holodeck's too big to be a gadget. So I was saying smartphones. Well, see, smartphones don't do much for me personally. You know, I could easily go without. In fact, I frequently go without smartphones. For much of what I do, I could just use a landline even. Star Trek tricorder. Those things can scan anything and find problems. That's not bad. Star Trek tricorder could have a lot of uses. Yeah, because yeah, you could detect anything. Like if your house has a structural problems or there's some sort of leak, or like you check the air quality or water quality. Yeah, Star Trek tricorder is very good. Yeah, that's another very good suggestion. Yeah, okay, so I think the chat's beating me on suggestions because all I had was like the razor, but yeah, these are better. Okay. Do you think you would be interested at some point in creating a series or a single video similar to Freeman's Mind? But okay, well, we already got asked this, so no, I'd rather just. That's probably gonna end with Freeman's Mind, the voiceover series. However, I do want to make a lot more videos. It's just that there'll be more like Game Dungeon or more like Civil Protection. Is probably what'll happen in the future. Or more of those kind of one-off videos like the Star Trek one I did. So there'll probably be like something like that, where either fully animated thing, a one-off sort of side video, or Game Dungeon, because I enjoy doing those more. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying the video which I opined about games as a subscription service, and I actually think that you should be approaching the dead games issue as right to repair issue. Well, maybe. I mean, there's going to be a lot of legal resistance to that. And they're mentioning the works of Louis Rossmann for this because he's been kind of spearheading the right to repair effort. The thing is, he's only made... There's a few issues with this. I'm not against it. It's more that I'm trying to weigh the time invested versus odds of success. And Louis Rossmann is taking it from the issue of actually passing legislation to make this a thing. And I'm all for that, but I am not, that is not something I have influence in. Like, I think, I want to say he's maybe invested like 6 figures or something like that in trying to make this happen with lobbyist efforts. And he has had some, I think he's recently had success. I think it was like, what, in Colorado maybe? With farming equipment. The thing is, like, for games as a service, having that in the state, I think would be almost meaningless. They would, because so much of it is digital anyway, they would find ways to back end it that it would be inconsequential. It would have to be a major country for it to happen. And again, look, if you want new laws passed, that takes a lot of money. I mean, either that or you have to have, you kind of need money at any level, because even if you have like a lot of organization, having that organization stick to it tends to take a lot of money. And that's just not who I am. I mean, my whole approach is trying to get it. The thing is, we're lucky in that for games as a service, to get like 98% protection, you don't really need new laws. You just need courts to interpret this under existing laws, because there already are a lot of consumer laws on the books, and these things are observed for the most part. I mean, it varies. But yeah, the other issue with putting this under right to repair is the laws for software. It's you're facing even like an even harder legal uphill battle, I think, by trying to tie these together. Again, I'm not against any of this. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh no, you shouldn't do that. By all means, go for it. It's just that one feels like too much of a long shot to me. That like I feel like I'm just not able to make this happen. Like with in fact, I think I even said in the Games as a Service video, like I just don't have the kind of influence or income to get like new laws passed on this. Like and especially when you consider that if this actually made it to Congress, that I think right now game companies are totally fine with ignoring everything I'm saying because they see me as having no shot at all. I think I do have a shot in Europe, and I'm working on that. However, if it actually got to the point where this is a bill in Congress, one of their lobbyists is going to contact them or somebody in their legal team, and then you're going to get the big guns coming out against this to make sure that law does not pass because I don't think this would have to be as much of a hit to them financially as it might be portrayed. But if you're willing to change absolutely nothing about how you make games, like if you're unwilling to change a damn thing, then yes, this would actually have a big financial impact against a lot of companies. If you're willing to devote, like from the design phase, from ensuring you have an end of life plan, it's minuscule. It would be like up there with like a patch for the amount of work involved. And for some games, it would be almost no. For some games, it would literally be about 5 minutes of work. Like like we were talking about the crew. Let's say there is a flag in the source they have on their end to just turn off offline mode. Well, then that's all they have to do. I mean, okay, I'm overestimating 5 minutes of work, but it's because you have to implement it and then do it. But it's some games it's very simple. Like if you have access to all the source and can do this because it's already happening internally. And it's just that they would have to activate that on the end of life plan. But other games, it would take a lot of work to do it after the fact. However, if it's from the design phase, it wouldn't take that much more work. You know, I mean, it's... so, yeah, I mean, if he sees a path to... If he or somebody else with right to repair actually sees a path to victory to kind of lump software in general in with this, sure, I'm all for it. It's just that I'm not aware of that I know of. So, yeah, I mean, we have very similar attitudes on this from what I've seen of Louis Rossman's videos. It's just that he's coming at through, he's coming at through much more through like real world, tangible items. Whereas I'm specifically focused on games just because it's like they're unique art or cultural works that there's no substitute for, and they are actually destroyed. You know, it's like for me, the consumer rights angle, that's just a means to an end to me. I mean, to a certain amount, I actually am in favor, to a certain degree. Once you get to more essential things, I've stopped being like this, but for something like games, I actually do kind of take a, caveat emptor attitude, you know, let the buyer beware. However, the buyer, if you're circumventing the actual act of buying it, then that's like cutting beneath a level of that. Because I'm not trying to stop people from making crappy games. I mean, I want them to games not be crappy, but if I think the game's crappy, fine, I won't buy it. That's not a problem for me that they spent that. It's when I think the game is good that I don't want to destroy. That's the problem. Like, so. Rossman does talk about the ownership of. Well, if I can help or talk with, I'd be totally fine with talking with Louis Rossman, either on his channel or mine. I mean, he's a much higher profile YouTuber. Like he has like way more views and probably like I don't know how he does YouTubing and runs a business the way he does. So I guess some people are just like, well, he does a. Yeah, I was gonna say I guess some people are just sort of always on with what they're doing, but yeah, no, I'd be happy to talk with them about that on any channel. Yeah, maybe yeah that could be a helpful discussion. He might have some insight on it that I do. So yeah, Ross and Rossman has a good ring. Yeah, that'd be a good way to title it there. Ross and Rossman. Or give him first billing, so Rossman and Ross. One of those. But yeah, I mean, it could be he has perspective on it that I don't, and I think I could lay out the, I think I could lay out the situation for him and the problem pretty directly. So, but yeah, I think he did spend like a lot of money on lobbyists, like I think he spent maybe as much as I earn in a couple years as, just on lobbyists because he runs a business that's done pretty well. But yeah, no, yeah. So I'm all for it if I think it can work. And right now I'm skeptical as to that angle. It's a lot easier, from my perspective, to get courts to examine the actual existing laws, how they pertain to ownership of games, They're asking if I had map or foresight, what parts of Half-Life 1 would I edit, replace for Freeman's Mind 1? I don't know if I would have replaced that much. I remember the part that bugged me the most about 1 was that giant fan, because that one didn't seem plausible to me. That one felt like a stretch. And I was able to just, by dumb luck, have a work around that to make it look like... I used cheats to manipulate it so that when I opened the door again, which was... At the time I did that, I wasn't even aware that was something you could do. I made it look like the air was rushing in to make that happen, but... Yeah, I'm just not sure a fan that big would be enough to blow you upward if you were wearing like HEV suit armor the way Freeman was. And if that did, would that kill you slamming against the ceiling that way, that fast? So, I mean, I guess I really didn't like the tentacles from a gameplay perspective, but that might not have hurt watching it. I'll do things that are kind of a pain in the ass to do if it makes the video better. So that's happened more than a few times on Game Dungeon. Okay, somebody's asking about Isaac Arthur. They really want to see me talk with him. I'm not familiar with who that is. I took a look at the YouTube channel. It looks like I'd have to listen to some of his videos to get an idea of what he's talking about. It sounded like he was talking about a lot of like space related stuff, but if you had to work public relations for one of the following groups, which one would you choose? X-Men, Avengers, or Justice League? Well, I'm thinking probably not. I think X-Men will probably have the most uphill battle because you have a lot of rogue mutants. So that's going to be harder to sell that like you're the good guys when there's a lot of rogue mutants or villains causing trouble that and isn't that like a theme in X-Men that there's a lot of like anti-mutant sentiment out there also. So it's like, yeah, you really have your hands full with the X-Men. I mean, you kind of do with all of them, but like with Avengers, that one might be easier because usually when the Avengers cause like a lot of damage, there's usually some global level threat that would be easier to handle for PR because then you could just show over and over again what was happening. And then, you could kind of spin the damage, or spin off more of the damage that's saying this, saying that you could either, like, I guess, lie if you wanted to, and say a lot of this wasn't even the Avengers. This was just the villain, which a lot of that's going to be true. But for the cases where you have like video evidence, no, this is the Avengers that blew out a building or something, then just spin that all entirely on the threat that was happening at the time. It's like, well, yeah, but did you see do you see what happened to this Avenger? And you get like footage of them getting like knocked off a building, and then the chat has the right idea. Sorry, your flower shop was destroyed, but it was blown up in the fight on Mecha Hitler. So yeah, and you really need to showcase like the most destructive stuff, so that anything the Avengers are doing just looks like, well, one, you don't broadcast their genuine screw ups, but then you also have on a media cycle, you're showing like the worst damages that are coming from like, okay, so you had like them, Loki and the alien forces invading. Like you barely talk about, you don't even mention the Avengers screw ups unless you're questioned directly, and then you have like your party line for it. But all you're showing is like first alien invasion, like, and then it's like show nothing but destruction to New York coming from the aliens themselves, and then you show some shots of the Avengers, fighting back, and so you kind of weed out your footage there. And then if you're addressed point blank on it, yeah, acknowledge that it did happen, but this is war, like considering how much could have happened. Oh wow, lights in my face. I usually use papers to kind of diffuse the light, and one of them came loose. Okay, there we go. Considering what could have happened, that sort of thing. What could have happened? Like, we're lucky this is all that happened. Even though our Avengers are highly trained and did their best, but accidents can happen. And of course, we've tried to recompense anyone directly damaged by the Avengers in this, and we take the utmost of care. But when you consider the scale of the threat we were looking at, we can't carefully plan every single thing they're going to do. It's like we're lucky we're even breathing right now, and just keep spinning that angle, And I imagine it's pretty similar for Justice League. I haven't seen the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, but I did see the Justice League movie. Like, I'm not sure. Isn't Justice League like more secretive? Like I mean, maybe not. They kind of, like in the newer movies, they kind of spin things in a different direction where, like, Superman is, like, just seems kind of ambivalent for what he's even doing in the world, and he's like working with the military a bunch. I'm like, I was just, the newer Superman movies just didn't really resonate with me at all. Like, it just, I don't know. It seems like kind of a mess. Like, whereas the theme and the like with old Superman, it'd be a lot easier. Like 70s Superman, that would be a lot easier to spin PR wise. And imagine Justice League stuff was kind of like that, more like that back then. So like modern one, it's just kind of a mess. I'm not even sure how to spin it. Yeah, so I guess I go with Avengers. That like I can think of a lot of strategies for how I'd handle that, and just keep it. And like the more you get cornered, the more you have to emphasize what the alternative would be, and say, well, yeah, I'm not defending all this damage that happened, and some of it was the Avengers' fault. Nobody meant. However, like pretty much every single time it is their fault, it's an accident, and it's always in the midst of some globe-threatening problem. So, it's you don't get too cocky with spinning off the damage, but, I can handle that, I think. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you could spin Avengers, but because I think that's kind of the theme in Avengers is that they only come together when there's like a really major threat, and most of the time it's just the individual heroes. So yeah, so I guess Avengers, because I don't even know what Justice League did have some Earth-threatening threat, but they're also fighting themselves a lot. I mean, I guess you had that in Avengers also, but that would just be that always felt like kind of dumb to me, the Civil War, at least how the movies portrayed it. It's just like, why is this such a big issue? It should just, I don't know. It doesn't, they should just say, well, yeah, well, some of them are going to be part of this organization, some of them aren't. And I'm not even sure. I don't know. That one never really landed with me, the Civil War thing. But see, that all got forgotten about after Thanos. So, it works out. Yeah, with newer Justice League, I'm not even sure what they're doing. And I'm not sure they know what they're doing either. Whereas Avengers, it seems a lot clearer. Okay. What do you think about the recent sequence of event where social platforms messed something up so badly that people migrated to alternatives? We'll see if it sticks. I mean, this is sort of like on a much lesser scale, this kind of reminds me a little bit of like Microsoft screwing up Windows and people going to Linux, but not that many go to Linux. There's a lot of reasons for that, but this is going to test monopoly-ish entrenchment to see how that goes. I mean, I'm fine. I'm really not. I really don't have much of a dog in the fight because I kind of don't care about social media that much. I mean, I'd say the worst thing to come from this is like lots of links on places like Reddit that have like lots of great information, or not just great information, but just great entertainment too. I mean, yeah, in fact, if somebody wants to, well, no, it would be too much work, but one of my eventual projects I'd like to get around to, maybe I should hurry up on, would be to go through the Abrupt Chaos Reddit and save copies of all the stuff I really like in there. I have a bit of a hiccup. That would, because some of those videos showcased on there are just amazing. Like, Abrupt Chaos was the one that really got my attention. So, but I haven't really had time to go through something like that. So that'll be sad if I don't get around to that, and a lot of those videos get lost. But yeah, I can only keep up with so much of the internet. But I mean, good if people stay the course and leave on it, because this is kind of what happens to almost every monopoly or monopoly-like organization, that they eventually just start doing stuff that people really don't like because they know you don't have anywhere else to go. Except in this case, you do have places to go. The question is, can you get enough people to come with you? So in terms of functionality, you absolutely can go other places, I'm sure of it. Because, I mean, these aren't that complicated concepts. Just a site where people post links and vote on them. Or a site where people post short messages and can give likes and links. I mean, this is not rocket science for computers. We had stuff like, we had things similar to this in the 90s, It's just that they got streamlined and people kind of coalesced in place, and that's what gives it its value. So if they can piss off enough people to have a big enough exodus, yeah, there's no reason another company couldn't just take over instead. So yeah, with stuff like Windows and Linux, unfortunately, there's a lot of like real world practical things that you can't run on Linux that you can run on Windows, that it becomes a lot more complicated, where they really have like an entrenchment issue where it's not just the function, or it's not just that there's a lot of people on one platform and not the other. It's that you're giving up a lot of things depending on what you do, or the functionality is may or may not be there. So it can be, it's much more of a crapshoot. But yeah, for social media, yeah, I don't see anything that cannot be replicated elsewhere. Have you seen any of the newest Star Trek series? I saw some of Picard and kind of gave up on it. I still need to see Discovery and Strange New Worlds. So. And I still need to catch up on Enterprise and wasn't there another one? I forget. I don't know if I'm. Maybe I'll pick a top 10 of Deep Space Nine or something like that. I didn't really get into Deep Space Nine, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be good episodes. I mean, for my taste, some people love Deep Space Nine, and that's their favorite. I think those are the people who want the more, I guess I would call it the more soap opera-ish side of Star Trek. Whereas I'm there for anomaly of the week. I love that phrase that somebody used. That's the part of Star Trek I like. Anomaly of the week. Let's something crazy is happening, and they're gonna get to the bottom of it or try to. That sort of thing. Let's see. And somebody's saying Picard season 3 was great. So I have no idea. Season 1 wasn't great to me. So in the chat, feel free to weigh in on that statement if you think Picard season 3 is great or not. I have no idea. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm getting the ones where I don't have great answers for. So, okay, no, I do have one. Okay, they're saying I was gonna start skipping ones. I don't have a great answer to this, but this reminded me of something else, and I prepared for it. Okay, they're saying if the Ross Scott Experience was a theme park ride, what would it be like? And I have no idea. However, this reminded me when I did that art chat, art discussion, I had a picture that I forgot to put up. And this was a good one, and this was some of my more abstract art. And I even alluded to it in that video, and then I didn't put it up. So now I'm gonna show some of the art I did that was more abstract, and maybe this will help answer your question for what would the theme park ride be. So, okay. Yeah, okay, so this is my abstract art from, I think, when I was in either middle school or early high school. So you tell me what the ride would be like. This is some of what goes on in my brain. So yeah, I feel like an idiot. I didn't show that during the art chat with him, but okay. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. All right. Let's see. Looking for more questions. I'm just skipping some now that I don't have great answers for, but if they got a bunch of votes, I would try to get better answers. Oh yeah, well, somebody was asking which party would Freeman vote for. I stopped and I had to think about it, and I really can't see Freeman going. I think Freeman would be an anarchist. I mean, just based off of how I've portrayed him. So neither, I wouldn't say either party's anywhere close to anarchy. Oh yeah, somebody's asking if I would consider moving the links for the chat and everything if Reddit and Twitter kick the bucket. Sure. Just, I kind of want to follow the crowd on that one. So I don't really have much of a horse in the social media race. So you guys tell me, kind of prove that there's a lot of people going there. Or if the site goes down, which might happen for Twitter. I'm not sure. I keep hearing stories about what's going on there. It sounds like they're having some trouble. So, okay, I'm skipping some more questions. Somebody's asking if I know Mandalore, and if from Mandalore Gaming, if I'm friends. Not I don't really know him. I can't remember if I did like a cameo for him or not though. Like I left comments. I left a comment on his video in the forest when people informed me I got a shout out from his stuff. So I suggest. Yeah, I suggested that what his approach I would not recommend for trying to get the forest dwellers to worship us as gods, and I recommended the movie The Man Who Would Be King as an example of how that might go. Yeah, that's a good movie. It's with Sean Connery, Michael Caine in it. But yeah, I'm fine with if he wants me to come on for something or wanted to come on my channel. I'm all right with that. But yeah, it's just sort of like loose internet acquaintance for me. I don't know that much about him. I've seen a few of his videos. They were entertaining. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, somebody's asking, do you accept friend invitations on GOG? I guess not, because I actually wasn't even aware they had a social media aspect to it. But I'm not really big on making like my game launcher also the social media platform. So I probably wouldn't use it anyway. It's not against you personally. I just well these video chats are a way to try to kind of shore up like not having enough contact with fans, or more recently the interviews are a way of doing that if you feel like we could have a good discussion on something. So now I'm trying. It's just kind of a balance between things. Oh, somebody's asking where the best place to submit Game Dungeon suggestions are. Probably email, though you may not get a reply, but I have a whole category in email of Game Dungeon suggestions. So I'll try to get through more of them at some point, but I still have games I want to show first. Oh, okay. I didn't get to see this one. Let's see. They're saying, what mechanics and themes would you place in such a setting for utopian games? Yeah, in a future Game Dungeon, I'm going to take another crack at Utopia. We'll see how that goes. This is one I haven't finished, but we had a technical issue that was solved, so I should be able to resume that at some point. What games do utopian civilization create? Since so many games and their mechanics revolve around conflict. Well, I think you could still create a lot of those games because I guess it depends on how you define utopia. I mean, people are going to want excitement still, I think, in a utopian state, and having conflicts are a way to do that. You would just have to structure the believability around it based on the utopian society. So it may not be like, well, you could do two things. Well, one is you could have multiple things. You could have the conflict be like a period conflict. So this is in the past when there was all this crime going on. Whereas, like, if there's some crime boss in Utopia, if that doesn't make sense for Utopia because we found ways of social engineering to more or less eradicate that, then it just doesn't land so much. But even in Utopia, you could have depictions of an alternate society where that stuff is still relevant, or you could have conflicts that would still pertain to Utopia, like alien invasion. That's always something that's on the table. Or just because it's Utopia doesn't mean there's not a lot of Machiavellian stuff going on in certain sectors of it, or something like that. It's you can find lots of conflict still. So I think you could have a lot of games you have going now. I think one of the difference between games in a utopian environment versus now would be you wouldn't have all this kind of cheap cash-in stuff because there might not be any point. The only point would be to make the game as enjoyable as it could, or to some extent getting attention, so they might still have like a lot of gimmicks to kind of put them on the map or that sort of thing. But they're saying Utopia wouldn't remove murder, right? Well, I'm going to talk about some of this stuff in the future Game Dungeon, but I would say I wouldn't say you'd eliminate murder unless it's like really sci-fi. It's just that you would vastly reduce it. You would remove like 90% or more of the reasons murder occurs, or conditions that tend to make murder more likely. I mean, there's always going to be some conflict, but you could, that doesn't mean you can't reduce it by 90%, 95% or more. That's my take on utopia. But I mean, unless you're getting into like real sci-fi stuff where you're talking about like total like mental engineering, that there's some technology that intercepts a lot of like human impulses that would lead to conflict, that would interfere with that. But I'm looking at when I'm talking about utopia. I mean that can include the more out there stuff, but I'm talking about like humans are still humans, but society is structured in such a way that things are so much better, like that, and a lot of the conflicts we have now simply don't exist in this utopian state because it just doesn't make sense. Like with Star Trek, people are still people, but they don't have to worry, or they don't have to worry about money. They have replicators. People have resources. So why are people going to rob a bank? Do banks even exist? It's like that kind of crime goes out the window. But it doesn't mean you can't have conflicts over other things. So, that's an example of like something that's kind of utopian. But okay, more questions. And I'm saving some better examples for that game dungeon because I have a good example of it. Will you ever review Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines? Maybe. I mean, that's, I'll have to see how many votes it gets for the requests. It's one of those where see, that's a good example of what I was talking about earlier, where I played through the game and by like every objective metric, it's a pretty good game, but it doesn't quite like ignite the spark with me, and I don't know why. I mean, there's lots of good like dialogue in that game and good story, good gameplay, but something just didn't click with me on it. So that doesn't mean I don't like games. It's just that for mysterious reasons, not every game that, even though on paper it should, clicks with me, and I can kind of drift towards other things that I might not expect necessarily. So. Going back to the question earlier about the guy who was having a loss in game, loss of an interest in games. So I think he just probably needs to branch out, or not necessarily branch out, but no, I mean he could like the same. He needs to hunt more. Is probably what he needs to do. Is like find out what games he really likes, and then figure out like what's likely to hit those kinds of notes, that sort of thing. Skipping a little bit. Okay, somebody's mentioning the program 3DFI, and apparently it will generate 3D models from text prompts using AI. I hadn't heard of that, but great. I mean, that's where I'm most interested in AI, is with multimedia. For not real world practical stuff. Obviously, it's better to save lives through medical breakthroughs, or maybe like what? I'm not sure what the word. I almost want to say stuff like city planning or social engineering, where you can maybe use AI to kind of figure out like better resource allocament, that sort of thing, and that indirectly leads to people's lives being better. But for fun stuff, yeah, multimedia. So great. If I could generate a 3D model with text prompts, I'm sure that's going to help a lot of people. I mean, for making creative things. I'm still very interested in something. I feel like with the games, with the Dream software I mentioned, I feel like we have the technology right now. It's just not focused in that direction exactly. like I think NVIDIA has the Nerf stuff that you can kind of recreate like a small scene, but I don't know if that extends to like a full game map. Like if you were to feed it enough, and then it could kind of intelligently interpret like the auto stitching, that sort of thing. So but however, if that was like a big focus, I think we could have that today. You know, I mean, not with the coding work, but like within a month or something like that. You know. But yeah, great. Yeah, if anything, all those AI discussions I had, and well, I say all those, there were really only 2 big discussions. However, I got a lot of emails from people that I discussed more with. So I probably had like a couple dozen that I tried my best to keep up with them. I didn't, I think I replied to most of them, and a few people we had back and forth on. Unfortunately for them, it didn't really change. It kind of reinforced my perspective on this, that I feel like they're kind of taking a leap of faith that this becomes the danger level they're worried about, the people who are really worried about it. Because it's like, if you really try to drill deep into how it makes that jump to becoming either a sentient being or how it becomes like a threat past like what I list on my little AI chart there, like I don't get many clear answers, and it feels dodgy, the answers I get, which makes me think that they can't really explain how it happens. It's just that if it does make this jump, then there are all kinds of things to worry about. But if it doesn't, then it never, that's something we never really have to worry about. But that doesn't mean AI can't be a threat. It's just that I see it as a much lower threat than a lot of stuff we're doing without AI. And I tried to kind of put it all on my little chart there. So, yeah, okay, I don't need to veer off on that. Okay, I'm getting to the end of the questions, so people can start asking live questions. Do that at Ross Broadcast, and I'll look at these last ones. Excluding the released videos, how many scripts have you written for civil protection that have yet to be made? Probably only like 4 or 6 full scripts, but I have like several dozen like episode ideas, so that they could be developed into scripts. Did I attract attention when I was screaming for some of Freeman's Mind? None at this apartment, but that's part of the reason I chose this one, is because I knew I could maximize my odds of not causing a scene when I have to get really loud for Freeman's Mind. Well, okay, I'll answer this one that I thought I answered in the video. Ross, in your Legend of Kyrandia 2 game dungeon, you gave it the all-time favorite award, but in the video itself, you seem very critical of the game, especially the gameplay. What explains this discrepancy? It's like I said in the video, the highs got even higher. So if this, like, I loved like the scenes where you're going to the Skylands, which is a surprise to me, and just we keep throwing out this weird, fascinating stuff. Like that really lingered in me. So this is what I'm going back. This kind of goes back to that game conversation again. It's like you can objectively point to all these reasons why one game does something better than another. But if the other one sparks my imagination and gives me a sense of wonder in the way the objective in air quotes game, the more competent game doesn't, I might get bored with the highly competent game, but then the awkward game that was thrown together that just kind of blew my mind more, that's the one I remember, and that's the one I have like fond memories of. So that's what I kind of explained this in my games list video also. That, you know, it's, some games are uneven, and like some of my favorite games are not my favorite across the board. And it's even rare. I mean, it can happen to have like really great gameplay, really great atmosphere, and it's all my all-time favorites and that sort of thing. That's even more rare. So it's usually almost always a mix. So, Okay, so live questions. Do you have a distaste for suburbs and for consumerist culture and unsustainability it cultivates? If you or your friends have ever grown up in one, I don't have a distaste for it. Well, I mean, it's kind of mixed feelings because, like, aesthetically, I actually can like the look of suburbs, and I think that's actually a good potential setting for some games. In fact, I had an idea that would be fun to have, like, well, I said before in Counter Strike, some of the most fun I ever had was for like this Jeepathon 2K level, where it was so bare bones the level, but you would just hop in a Jeep and one person would be the driver, and then you just would have drive-bys against the opposing team, and it was so much fun. Like, especially when the driver got shot out and the car is still coasting, and everybody's still like huddled onto the Jeep, and then the driver would just sometimes tear off, and a lot of people are on foot, but the driver's kind of a wild card going around. I thought that would be a lot of fun to have that in like a suburban setting. I do agree completely in their unsustainability. Like, so suburbs today might be modern ruins of the future, and I guess I don't like having to drive all over the place. But from an aesthetic standpoint, I mean, they can be nice, so I guess it's kind of mixed feelings, but they're probably on their way out over a long enough time span anyway. You said that one of the big draws of point-click adventures is they were the only genre with good writing for a while. Could you feel that point-click games were starting to go away when the writing of other genres of games started to get better? Oh no, I don't think so. I mean, they could get better, but they would have what? Like, I don't think they would have. I guess RPG writing could sometimes would probably be like my second most one. I mean, they would be better. Like, I would say like the best writing of a lot of mainstream games would be like what I would expect from like an okay comic book movie of like the 90s or something like that. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's better, but it's not like blowing my mind. There were some rare exceptions, but those usually weren't like the top grossing games either. So no, I think it was just the gameplay and not getting enough sales, that sort of thing. Well, see, when you saw the decline of point-and-click adventure games, this was before Kickstarter or, Greenlight stuff on Steam. So you basically had to convince a major publisher to put that out there. And if the publisher thinks that they can get more return on their investment from a different genre, well, then that's going to severely limit how many resources can get thrown towards it. Then there were a few niche ones, like I think the Adventure Company was one that kind of rode that out. There were a few others, but they were niche publishers, and you couldn't have as many resources to throw at them during that time. So, okay, I'm scrolling up in the chat so I lose track of it. Besides, you had good writing in like some older games, especially RPGs in the old days too. It's just hard. Pizza or tacos? You can only choose one for the rest of your life. Oh wow, that's a difficult question. Because I'm thinking, okay, well, you know what? We'll just say tacos because they're probably healthier. Because pizzas, you have like a lot of like breading. Whereas the taco shells are thinner. So maybe I'll go with that. I like both a lot. So. When you're pushed around, what do you stand on? It's totally a contextual thing. I mean, for some things, it's totally not worth standing. It's better to just get out of the way and just, swallow your pride at some things. I think there was a Dave Chappelle skit on that where he's talking about keeping it real, and he keeps showing he shows like multiple scenarios where keeping it real results in the person getting a beat down or one person ending up in prison. And so you got to pick your battles. I guess I would need more context on this. Give some better examples. because I mean, my pride, I consider my pride kind of disposable to a point, you know, where it's like if I'm getting insulted on something, it's like, all right, how is this really going to affect me? Is this something where this person is just going to be ruining my life day in, day out then I really need to like come up with a counterattack or else a way of nullifying this somehow. But if it's just like a one-time thing, I don't really care, you know. If you had to only watch one Saturday morning cartoon for the rest of your life, what would it be? Let's see. I have to think. Well, I've kind of grown out of most Saturday morning cartoons, but if we were to extend that to cartoons, well, okay, I guess just going for sheer volume, I'd probably go for The Simpsons. Because it's not necessarily my favorite, but there's a lot of Simpsons episodes I haven't seen. So, although, I guess either that or, yeah, so this isn't Saturday morning cartoon, so we'll just go with like adult cartoon. Maybe South Park. There's a whole lot of South Park I haven't seen also. But I think Simpsons probably wins out in volume. So, but I guess once I've seen them all, then if I remember them pretty well, I'm probably not going to keep rewatching them, and I'll probably do something else. So I think South Park's funnier than The Simpsons, so maybe that would be a better pick. I was surprised to see that none of the Tex Murphy games are on your games list. Have you played them? Well, the thing with Tex Murphy is I'm not really into like film noir. And I mean, I don't hate it. It's just like not really something I gravitate towards. And that was sort of the vibe I always got from Tex Murphy. And I know that has its own cult following, but it's just like, I'm not really interested in like going out of my way for that. But maybe I should anyway. I don't know. But yeah, that's the example of my biases coming into play there. I mean, I have played Max Payne 1 and 2, but that Max Payne delivers in action. Like, I mean, I think it still holds up in terms of action. So and it's all, it being really well done helps. So, okay. I work from home and I really want to exercise, but I don't have time. And the little free time I have, I want to play something or watch a movie because tomorrow I have to work again. I also live in the city without forests or mountains. Any out-of-the-box ideas? Okay, if you're that pressed for time, this is going to be trickier for the summer, but you might want to buy something like a cycle machine or like a treadmill or something where you can be exercising like while you Let's see, are you just doing games or are you watching anything? Okay, watch a movie. Yeah. Do it while you watch a movie. Like if you're that pressed for time and that like you can't go and just like have like a walk for 20 minutes or something like that while you listen to something or then you have to merge the two. So do a movie where you're kind of on your treadmill or cycling while you're doing it. The part you do need the space for that, though, and another problem some people might not think of is the ventilation, because that's going to make it kind of more humid and sweaty in that room, and you may not want it for that. So you might have to figure out. You might be kind of stuck with it, but I guess another thing is if you're going out for groceries or something like that, maybe you can intentionally take like a longer way, or if you have to drive there, maybe you could park someplace that like you're okay walking to the grocery and then coming back from it. And I guess that might not work if you have like a bunch of groceries, but then you can maybe wear like a backpack, carry a whole lot that way. Just try to merge it however you can, I guess. But yeah, let's. Okay, it's been a little over a year since Ukraine war started. Do you feel like the fighting is far away? Or do you feel a bit uneasy that it's that close? Does it come up often in your life? I think I said before, I mean, for where I am, in Poland, I think if I'm in trouble, the entire northern hemisphere is in trouble, because if it were to spill over for whatever reason, like either, well, okay, this gets into a lot of stuff I should really get into, but if it were to spill over into like the European Union or NATO country, then that's considered an act of war on like Europe, and then that could become a mutually assured destruction scenario where it would involve nuclear weapons, a massive amount of nuclear weapons, which has the potential to maybe, as I understand, to like end life on Earth if enough of them were launched. I haven't. So in which case, I say the northern hemisphere because if it was sort of contained between like nuclear superpowers, then maybe the southern. I've heard like the wind currents from like the fallout don't cross the equator that easily. So maybe the southern hemisphere has a better shot, depending on where nukes go off. But I mean, I think it's either contained to Ukraine or else it's World War III. So I mean, to me, peace is like push for diplomacy and peace talks is like the only sane option. But that's a whole other thing. That's my take on it. So yeah, I absolutely have had some concerns about that, but not because I'm in Poland, but because it could escalate. And that's actually why I rewatched that movie Matinee, because that takes place during the Cuban Missile Crisis in that movie. And in the 50s, in the 60s, that there were some nuclear scares during the Cold War. Where things are pretty intense that you're wondering if civilization is going to be there tomorrow. So I think. I think multiple parties are having brinksmanship in a way that, it can scare the hell out of me. I really wish we were kind of being more sane about all this. So, anyway, that's nothing's worth having nuclear war over. Nothing. So. That's my take on it, but I don't have much influence on this. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, the David Cage games. I actually picked those up during the winter sale. I just haven't got around to playing them yet. Those seem also Detroit Become Human. That's one. That's one. That one might be really demanding graphically. I haven't checked, but from the looks of it, it's like yikes. And heavy. I'll probably do them in order, or maybe I'll do Two Souls next. Or Beyond Two Souls. Beyond Two Souls, from what I get, that one might be the one I'm least interested in, and I'm probably most interested in Detroit and Omicron. So I'll see. We've seen comments on gnarly bark, windy woof, BS. Turns out it's another pun. Yeah, but it felt like, I thought of that when I was making the episode, but I wasn't making the connection between gnarly and. See, okay, that was my problem. I was thinking windy woof, not windy woof. So I actually thought of that, and I was seeing the connection between bark and woof, but then I wasn't. I was thinking windy as in blowing, and I wasn't making that connection between that and gnarly. But now I realize I should have seen windy. I was thinking windy instead of windy. So, yeah, I missed it. Okay. What was the lowest point of your life post-depression? Probably the hell machinima put me through. Like, of having, basically putting me in a situation where I might not be able to make videos, and I was supporting myself and my wife in a foreign country. So that means it's not that I couldn't transition away from videos, but that would have been incredibly stressful on my wife too. Like if we had to move back to US, where I'd have had a hard time being able to afford it for both of us. I might not have been able to. Yeah, so it was like, and they were lying to me and extending this over months and making false promises. And like there was so much writing on that with the contract negotiations. And they were taking like such a hostile approach to all of this. And yeah, so that was easily like the longest, most stressful period of my life post-depression. So I'm saying they'd skip Beyond Two Souls. Okay, well maybe I'll start with Beyond Two Souls then for game. I'd rather go from like worst to best, that sort of thing. So let's see. Okay. Okay. Do you approve of Chat GPT style AI replacing scripted NPCs in gaming? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Though there is the problem of the resource. Yeah, this is one thing I never really understood. Because this goes back to like cloud gaming. There is the risk that this takes so many resources in order to run that it's not really practical to have like an end of life program. However, my 100% reaction to that is fine. Give us the code anyway. Is give the diehards a fighting chance to run this game or run a scaled down version of the game or something rather than kill it. Because I feel like that's still not an excuse. It's like, okay, I understand if they don't have the resources to keep running that after the profitability wanes, but then give us the tools, give us a fighting chance, so that like an average system can't run the game on this scale, but then we could look at the code and maybe find some shortcuts, or maybe super fans want to rent out a super server to keep the game running, that sort of thing. So like to me, there's no valid excuse to just kill it all, dead stop, give the fans nothing for a game they paid for. There's no good excuse for that. None. Like, yeah, no, the only good excuse is if you had a plan to do that, but then everywhere you kept the code was in the building got hit by a meteorite or something, or it burned down. So it's literally, so this wasn't the plan. It's just that there's literally no other way we could have done it based on what the idea was. So, because everything else is just an excuse, and the compromises are totally achievable. So, even when you have like real technical barriers, you shouldn't take a no for an answer on this for it's a game you paid for. It's completely unacceptable. But okay, but going back to what I was talking about with cloud gaming, the idea is like, okay, fine, this takes a lot of processing to do. However, you have to realize that for every person playing the game, like usually the level of the processing load is equivalent to like a whole system in itself. So it's like if you have, let's say, 10,000 people playing the game, well then you need the processing equivalent of like 10,000 people, 10,000 people simultaneously playing it. Probably could get even higher for some games. Well, then you need the processing equivalent of 10,000 systems. So that's not even like a savings for the processing. I mean, yeah, you could maybe get like 2-to-1 or something like that for some optimizations. But if you're doing it for characters, well, then you need all that processing like per character or something like that. So I'm not sure how well that scales, other than if you have a breakout game, I guess, unless part of the deal is everybody's going to get queued. So yeah, if you want to play it, you got to wait in line with like 3,000 other people. And then when you get in, then you can play it with. But the numbers never really made sense to me on that, because you can have like private server for like a normal game, not like streaming or something. Normal multiplayer game where you're just selling like the smallest bits of data to the server to convey your position and everything for the character. I mean, you were able to do games like that on dial-up. That's how little data is necessary. But let's say it's a little more demanding. What you could have is a situation where, say there's like 10 million copies sold, but at any given time, like there's a peak at the start, and then after that, at any given time, there's only like 100,000 people online at any given time. Well, then you only need the resources about for 100,000 people, even though the people playing it might cycle in and out, that sort of thing. So you don't need to have the equivalent of resources for every last person, but you do need it for all the simultaneous people playing. But for like really intensive process of stuff, you need a lot more. So I'm not sure where that goes or not. But yeah, I have no problem with it on principle, but as long as they don't kill the game. Oh, somebody's asking my opinion on cloud computing. I mean, I'm great with that. It's similar to games. I'm great with that as an option. And cloud computing actually can be a lot more useful than like cloud gaming, because you can do, you can give regular people access to essentially supercomputers, and they could do a lot of like practical stuff with it. As long as it's the same thing though, as long as there is an option to run the computations locally, even if we're talking 1,000th of the speed, you need something. You need something. So. Do you have any opinion on Valve evidently refusing to have a basic legacy client for Steam, which works on an older version of Windows? I hadn't heard of that, but I mean, I think it's another gray area for consumer law, actually, because the idea being, if you bought the game like for Windows 7 or XP, and then they don't give you a way to access that, then you can argue you've had your game removed from you. However, I'm less adamant about that one, because that one's more, in my opinion, strictly a consumer rights issue, because if you can still get to the game with a newer OS, then it's like, okay, it's a pain in the ass now, and we maybe should have more rights on this, but what I care about is the game still obtainable? And I guess it varies too between if it's like a game that you can run off, if they're just operating as the game client where you can download that game and then run it offline because it doesn't have DRM. But if it has like DRM, yeah, okay, like the nightmare scenario, which this may or may not even exist, and so many games get cracked anyway, would be if you have DRM and the game only runs on a legacy OS. However, you can only get the game through the modern OS, and there's no crack for it. So you have a game where it might be able to like cut you off from the way it's positioned. The odds of all three of those variables occurring is actually very rare. So I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, that could be a potential issue. Consumer rights in gaming is one of those things where I'm all for it, but it's like I'm so busy with other things, and that a lot of the time that kind of pales to me compared to actual game destruction, that it's just a much lower priority for me. So, and also there's a lot of voices out there that like that's their bread and butter, is like consumer rights for games, and they're talking about like, oh, are you getting ripped off, or you should be entitled to this thing, that sort of thing. I'm basically single issue on not having games destroyed, because it's like, I don't care if what I paid for it, if the game was destroyed, then like, and I didn't get a chance to go through it, or I want to come back to it, then like, to me, that's like, it doesn't get any worse than that for gaming. like I'd rather overpay for a game and get kind of burned because I didn't research it well enough than just have a game I love and then now it's taken away from me forever. So, you know. Let's see. Oh yeah, I saw this in the questions. I guess I missed it by accident. Where were you when 9/11 happened, and what were your thoughts while and after it was happening? That was in the throes of my depression. I was in college, freshman college at the time, I'm pretty sure. I think I remember on that day, I'm not sure if that's when I heard it, but it was definitely on that day. I actually had, it was either a psychologist or a psychiatrist visit. And so I was still pretty heavy into depression, but I remember you thinking it was pretty remarkable that it had happened. And one of the thoughts that did occur to me was that, like, wow, this is actually quite a bit like Deus Ex, like, you know, with the bombing of the Statue of Liberty. I was thinking, yeah, that was actually one of my earlier thoughts, but I mean, it was one of those things where you're wondering, okay, well, what's happening next? This is probably going to change things. So I guess I didn't overly think about it, but yeah, I mean, my understanding of it at the time was probably similar to like just what you would expect of something like a natural disaster. Like I didn't know why we had been attacked or, you know, what the full ramifications are, but just from a pure visual standpoint, you can see, oh, wow, this is a big deal. So, let's see. I can see this as a save and safe. I can see this, a save is safe in the cloud, but when you write a contract with a big gaming for online multiplayer, you're signing you have some typos here. You're signing your computer console soul. No, your save is not safe in the cloud. No, it's convenient in the cloud, and it's safer than if your local situation is a wreck or you think your place is going to be broken into or something like that. So it can be safer than some things, but no, it's not safe in the cloud. If they shut that service down, then it goes away with that, you know. Whereas if you have a backup, yeah, then that's safer. But I mean, you can have like local disasters, like so let's say there's a fire and it was stored locally. Well, you could have an offline copy somewhere else too. But I mean, it's safe in the cloud as long as that cloud service is maintained. But you know, if you know, businesses can die, you know, I bet a lot of people thought things were safe on Reddit or some things were safe on Twitter, and we can see now that that's looking shakier. So okay, do you process or feel the same about other large historical events that are happening while you're around? I guess I'm confused on the context. You mean like if I was like, you mean if they were where I was? I mean, maybe I'll probably remember it a little more. I guess I looked, okay, I'm probably going to say something that gets me in trouble, but I guess I look at things like what causes like the most harm and suffering as far as the things that resonate with me the most. So if you're looking at something where, I mean, like emotionally, like that's what I'm thinking. So if you're looking at like a disaster where like, say a dozen people were killed, it's like, yeah, that can be a tragedy and that can sometimes be very graphic, but that doesn't register as high as something where millions are killed. And it's like my brain can't shut off like the stuff, or not even killed, but sometimes, let's say you have thousands are killed, but then millions are suffering from the event too. Like I'm thinking of like some pollution events or something like that. So it's, my brain tends to gravitate towards what does the most damage, really, like what harms the most people. And like for some reason that can, I mean, obviously, if a disaster happened right in front of my face, that would probably scar me in a different way, or someone I knew personally that was affected by it, you know. But beyond that, my brain tends to go as like, what is causing the most harm to the most people, and that's what resonates with me more than anything. So I don't know. That's just how my brain's wired. Uh, and that's not always what the news covers at all. Like so it can vary. Russ, in my opinion, you should oppose any chat GPT powered game, especially if it's online only, because those parts of the game cannot be reversed. It's a black box, and therefore it's not reproducible. No, that's not true. Well, okay, yes and no. Okay, I might be misunderstanding something here. It's yes, it's a black box, but it's not reproducible in the same way that a game like Diablo 1, you're never going to get the exact same level twice. Like it's randomized, but you can kind of cover some similar beats. So yes, the actual AI is not going to reproduce things in the exact same way every time. However, you could have the model that's used for that AI distributed, and people could use that. So yeah, like there's plenty of games that use Minecraft. Well, I guess Minecraft, you can reproduce it by having the same seed, but there's plenty of games out there that, no, they are randomized. So like a lot of roguelikes are like that. You're never going to get the exact same level twice, but you're going to see some overlap. And that's okay, because that's like a core part of the game. And you're getting something pretty close to that particular instance that you did. If you play enough times, you'll probably get something pretty similar, you know? And hey, maybe in the future, especially with using AI, you can, you can maybe rip that exact instance of the level if you wanted to. So we might have more options with AI for that in the future, even if the game is designed so that it's always kind of be something a little different than, yeah, but hey, have an end of life plan. Have an end of life plan, you know, so that people who bought the game can continue playing the game once support ends. The solutions aren't always that simple, but the concept is that simple. And if you're deviating from that, then you're basically putting the game on death row. So and I always feel conflicted about games that are like that. So even if the game's good. Did you have any strange fears as a child? Not that I really remember, but I guess nothing too out of the ordinary. I mean, in fact, I remember having some fearlessness around bees. I guess, like I remember my mother asking me to go get something that was left on a ladder from painting that was near bees, because I wasn't afraid of it. So I figured, okay, I'll get it. And I mean, I've been stung, but I guess that just didn't scare me that much. So I don't know. I guess I can't think of any weird phobias I had. There's a silver line that old games have been released by companies that made them in the original state or remastered, like Killing Time and Postal. Duke Nukem 3D had 2 remakes. One was deleted, and Sin is getting a remake. I think Sin's just getting I would call it a re-release, where they polish up a few things, but that's not really a remake. Like when I think of remake, I'm thinking of like what's going on with like the newest System Shock. Like that's a remake, you know. I guess I'm kind of confused by the statement. Sorry. It's paused again. Yeah, well, no, I mean, old games can always get a remake. That's fine, or a re-release that, you know, increases compatibility, that sort of thing. Yeah, you could say an extensive update. Like they'll do things like add widescreen support, make sure it works on modern operating systems, you know, like if applicable, mouse supports, or yeah, they can do a little. And sometimes, okay, sometimes they do like like they did that with like the Strife copy, and I think they're doing it with Sin, where they'll add these like shader effects, but those always look like off to me. Like some things will look better, some things will look worse. Can anybody think of like an example where, like, oh yeah, this looks a lot better with that shader effect on the re-release? Like I can't think of any, but I guess they can add things like motion blur. That can look pretty good. The original game, but yeah. So they can add a lot of quality of life things on like re-releases. I'm all for that, you know. Okay, somebody's saying thanks. They like the videos. More are coming. I promise, more are coming. I feel bad it's so few have come out this year, but that's because one of them was a time sink. If I had to do it over again, I probably should have steered clear of it, but I'm in too deep now, so it's gotta be finished. So. For what it's worth, the original Civil Protection was like that too, where I was weeks into it and I was thinking, geez, maybe I should have done this, but it would be more painful to just not finish it than to finish it. So, and I'm glad I finished the first episode of Civil Protection, because that caused a chain reaction towards all kinds of things. Have you had any sandbox-ish games which you have many hours of just goofing around or playing with cheats? Well, I played some of Minecraft, but not nearly as many as other people. Minecraft sort of got, it just would become less interesting towards me once I would sort of like map out like a big cave near me and the surrounding area. It just kind of felt a little aimless for me after that. Sandbox games. I almost look at Carmageddon a little bit like a sandbox game, with how you can drive in that. I enjoy just kind of exploring stuff. I'm not really into sandbox games where you like build a bunch of stuff, because that always activates the part of my brain where I feel like, well, I'd rather be building something more real, you know, like a new video or like a real world project or something, if I'm going to be building something rather than just in a game. Though I can understand why people would like that. Usually for sandbox games, I kind of make my own goal where I try to like see if it's a world I like, I try to like see the full world, and then just kind of, that's me finishing the game. Like that's kind of how I treat a lot of DayZ clones, that sort of thing. All right, well, I think I see that it for the questions there. Has somebody asked if I had any Labor Day episode ideas? Probably not really. Labor Day is one of those where well, maybe. I'll have to think of it. I'm trying to steer away more from like hard deadlines and just get more videos made. But because the stress level of trying to get to a deadline can just be awful sometimes. So I don't want to. Well, on that note, I'm gonna try to have something before next video chat. So, I mean, when I say something, I mean like a real video, like a Game Dungeon or Freeman's Mind or one of the side videos, something with actual editing. That's kind of the distinguishing thing between like what I consider a real video or not. Something that was editing and had a script to it. So, all right, I'm gonna head out. I actually got this done a little bit faster than. Well, actually, I was hoping to aim for like 2.5 hours, but I haven't done that in forever. So, yeah, maybe this Reddit or Twitter exodus is working because now we have less questions coming in. Okay, I'll see you. More stuff coming.